can continue to receive the critical care they need during these challenging times. Thank you for giving at treeofhope.org.
Your garage door is always there for you, rain or shine. Are you taking your garage door for granted? Is it screeching and whining for attention? Trust Overhead Door Company of St. Louis to keep your garage door reliable. Maybe the old weather stripping needs replaced to keep out the cold and hot air. Call Overhead Door Company of St. Louis, trusted here since 1926. For same-day service, call 314-781-5200 and schedule online at overheaddoorsstlouis.com.
Stop everything you're doing right now and ask yourself, are you currently receiving steady paychecks? What about when you're retired? Will you receive a monthly check to cover your expenses and also have some fun? Marvin Mitchell and the team at Compass Retirement Solutions calls this mailbox money. It's a monthly check you'll receive throughout retirement. They don't want you to worry about if the money will show up or how much money you'll receive. The only thing they want you to think about is how to spend it when it arrives. Find out how to get enough money in your mailbox every month when you're retired. Call Marvin Mitchell and the Compass Retirement Solutions team at 314-373-1598 to start working on a plan that can help you create the monthly income you'll need in retirement. Call 314-373-1598 right now and schedule a visit with Compass Retirement Solutions. 314-373-1598. Firm offers insurance services, investments, and services offered through Compass Retirement Group, a registered investment advisory in Missouri and Illinois.
There are over 10,000 reasons why steel is not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot. Find tools for the job site or your own backyard at over 10,000 authorized local steel dealers. Find yours at steelusa.com.
Hi, this is Amanda Murphy with Goldblatt Singer Attorneys at Law. On behalf of everyone at Goldblatt Singer, happy holidays. Take care out there, and remember, if you need help, Goldblatt Singer is just a phone call away.
This hour of the Annie Frey Show is brought to you by Ruler Foods. Low prices, no coupons. Ruler Foods.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Come on, turn the radio on. It's Saturday and I won't be long.
Don't get me wrong. I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom.
It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Frey Show.
And welcome in. I'm Ryan Recker, filling in for Annie Frey. I think it's going to be a fun Thursday. Ryan Wiggins here, too.
Hey, how is
Wiggins? It going? It's good seeing you on the video feed, which is up right now. Is there a YouTube chat poll today?
There is. The YouTube live chat poll is which issue. So we did kind of a fun one yesterday. It was a little bit more based on just lifestyle. It was whether you're working this week. Today, it's a little more issues-oriented. Which issue will motivate independent voters most in 2024? So it's not necessarily what will motivate you personally, but what you think independent voters will be motivated by. The choices are border immigration, the economy, abortion, or foreign issues.
Ooh, I think it's going to be neck and neck between economy and foreign issues. I don't know, though.
I don't know either.
That's a great question. So go on to YouTube. You can put your reasoning right in there. It's good to see you guys again. It's always a pleasure when I get a chance to come in here. And I heard them on the program right before us talking about Nikki Haley, and that's what I was going to lead in with. And I always hate that in radio, when the thing you want to talk about is the thing they talk about right before you go on the air. So how about I play for you maybe the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life? And this happens to be from AOC. Do you want to hear something really dumb from her?
Sure.
Take your pick.
Well, that's the thing. I could play anything from her. It could be a random spot of any time she's ever opened her mouth, and it'll probably be pretty dumb. But this in particular, her talking about the border, is really bad. All right, let's take a listen.
So often people want to say, why aren't you talking about the border crisis? Or why aren't you talking about it in this way? Well, we're talking about it. They just don't like how we're talking about it, because it's not a border crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. It's a climate crisis. It's a trade crisis. This is not a surge These are children, and they are not insurgents, and we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Wow.
Oh, boy.
You know what? If I could have scripted out her response to any issue like the border, I think I might have written that in jest, but that is actually what she said.
It's not a surge, it's an insurgence. What was the word that she used there?
It's a climate change problem, I know she said.
Oh, and white supremacy problem.
And white supremacy and imperialism.
Imperialism.
It's imperialism that people are coming into our country. Not that traditionally imperialism is talking about invading other countries, but somehow that's now on reverse when it's people coming into our country.
I got to play this again. There's just so much here.
So often people want to say, why aren't you talking about the border crisis? Or why aren't you talking about it in this way? Well, we're talking about it. They just don't like how we're talking about it because it's not a border crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. It's a climate crisis. It's a trade crisis. This is not a surge. These are children, and they are not insurgents.
I love this.
It's a trade crisis. Well, who's responsible for that? The Democrats or the White House?
Yeah, no kidding. I just thought that was so ridiculously funny. I almost at first thought there's no way it's that dumb. Like, this has to be AI. But no, this is the standard. This is what she stands by. So I saw that and I thought, oh, this will be a good way to open up the show. How about AOC on the border? Because she knows what she's talking about. And again, I've seen photos of her. I mean, it was very dramatic. I mean, she was out there behind a chain link fence, and you can tell it was a really touching moment for her when she saw the tragedy that was going on with kids in cages. But then we later find out it was her crying staged in a parking lot to make it look like she was watching something from the border. Oh, was that so dumb? So she's an expert, obviously. She knows what she's talking about.
You know, in a real way, and I mean this, I kind of envy people like AOC who look at the world through the lens of race only and, like the white supremacy thing, because it really does simplify everything. You can make anything a white supremacy problem, or in her words, I guess, an imperialism problem. That word doesn't make any sense. But you can make anything that be the source of that problem, and it kind of simplifies life. Like any problem you have, you can just blame it on that, and you move along your day. Yeah, it's real easy. It would be kind of comfortable to do that.
It's so great. So let me give you a problem, and I want you to try to justify how it's a race issue. Okay. Okay. The problem is I went to my local grocery store and they were out of Cocoa Pebbles, and I was so disappointed.
I think it's you have to ask yourself, first of all, who runs Post Cereal and who runs that grocery store. And my guess is that it's some sort of white patriarchy that has brought those things about. And therefore, it depends on where you're shopping, too, because if you're shopping in the middle of a city, we're dealing with food deserts now.
Right. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
And so, you got to bring that back. I'm not sure exactly how to get there yet. Give me a little time. But let's get back to imperialism as to why companies don't want to move into cities. That would be racist, probably, in some way. So there, I think I did it.
You know what? Well done. You could be a Democratic strategist.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm open to solicitation.
What about this Nikki Haley thing? Did you see the clip of Nikki Haley trying to answer about the Civil War and slavery? Have you seen that clip? And
I haven't.
They just played it. You haven't seen it?
No, I have not seen. Well, I was looking at. So Trump responded to something regarding Nikki Haley with an interview with John Solomon, and I was looking at that, but I hadn't seen the actual clip.
Oh. I should have that ready. I should have prepared that. I wasn't thinking, but they played it right on the show before we came into here. So essentially it was like a town hall style meeting, and Nikki Haley was talking about, taking questions from people in New Hampshire. No, I take that back. Was it in New Hampshire? I think it was New Hampshire, but either way, was asked about what do you think the cause of the Civil War is? And essentially Nikki Haley talked about it was a freedom issue, meaning that freedom for the people to what they can and can't do, as a government versus people type of issue. And she didn't say slavery. And the guy, so essentially people then automatically went online and just blasted her for not mentioning slavery as part of her cause for the Civil War. And that reminded me of that Simpsons episode. If she only watched The Simpsons, she would exactly know how to answer a question like this. When Apu, one of the greatest characters in Simpsons history, was trying to naturalize and become a United States citizen, he went through it the way you should, legally, went through the courses, then went and took the test, and then the final test came up, and he was asked this very question. If only she watched The Simpsons, they would know how to answer.
All right, here's your last question. What was the cause of the Civil War?
Actually, there were numerous causes. Aside from the obvious schism between abolitionists and anti-abolitionists, economic factors, both domestic and international, played a significant... Yeah.
Just say slavery.
Slavery it is, sir.
Yes, I am a citizen.
That's all you needed to do. That's all you needed to do. Just say slavery. It's over. And then all the controversy hits after that. I think that Nikki Haley is going to be a particular hit point because you have a lot of people that hate her because she is the number 2, I guess, in polling right behind Donald Trump. And if you have someone that really, really, really likes Donald Trump, they're going to take shots at who's going to be coming up or has a chance to take a shot at him. So she's going to be under a lot of scrutiny. Why would she, and she's a very smart person, not just say slavery and just be done with it? And you would be able to move on and everything would be fine and there would be no controversy.
Well, maybe she's a Simpsons fan because that's the first thing. I kid you not. The first thing when you started talking about this that I thought of was that clip from Apu from The Simpsons.
Yeah,
I had no idea that's where you're going with it, but that is the first thing I thought of because it is common that people will just say slavery, and that is the main reason. But there's all kinds of other factors, just like anything with history, that you can point to. But you're right. I guess if she's just looking for the quick answer, she probably would just say it.
You don't have to be a historian, honestly. You don't have to give a scholarly answer at a forum. Like when a person from the crowd asks you a question, you can just say mainly slavery, but there's other things that led into this, the political atmosphere, North versus South and their philosophy of owning people, whatever it may be. You can answer it in a way that all you got to do is say mostly slavery, and then you would have been completely fine. It's going to be like this, I think, between now and different primaries coming into next year. And I got to say that that's the part I'm not looking forward to all of this. It just gets into a nasty battle. I just want to skip to the part where there is one candidate and we're just focused on getting Joe Biden out of office. I just want to get to that part already.
Yeah, we're really not far. I mean, we're all looking ahead and going, a couple days till the new year starts. Okay. But January 15th, that's a little over 2 weeks away until the first caucus in Iowa happens. So we're really close to this whole thing starting.
Yeah. Do you care at this point who the candidate's going to be? Do you have a strong feeling? Because I think about the way I was back in 16 and then the way I was in 2012. And, I think about every 4 years, essentially, when there's a presidential election cycle, it seems like you rally against the person you think would be the good person to have in office. And it felt like I had so much more invested then than I do today. It just seems different this year with the presidential cycle. I feel like I'm less invested in the candidates. It's weird for me because I do pay attention to politics and I have my own preferences, but I don't get worked up about it anymore like I used to.
Yeah, I have a lean, but I think we all have a lean. I think coming out of a Democrat president, there's a lot more unity within the Republican Party to unify eventually around a candidate. Doesn't mean you all have the same pick for the primary, but I do believe that there's more unity in the party once a candidate is picked. And the more time goes by, the more it becomes very, very obvious that if the polling is even remotely accurate, doesn't have to be exact. It's possible that this could be a closer caucus in Iowa, could be closer primary in New Hampshire, but that the candidates might split there with DeSantis and Haley too. But either way, Trump is leading by a lot.
Yeah.
And for him to end up losing this primary, I just would be surprised. So I guess there's less invested in that sense because he wasn't maybe this is speaking to you a little bit. He wasn't a part of the debates, and that kind of takes away from it when the leading candidate isn't there. It's just been a weird season where all the fireworks that were supposed to happen just kind of haven't.
It will. I mean, if this everything goes as the way it's indicating it will, You'll have a presidential candidate that's an ex-president that is highly controversial, that has court cases against him, that will go out there like the wrecking ball he is and just completely destroy any Democrat in front of him through that in the one way he knows how to. And it's going to be probably even, would it be more entertaining or less? It's probably going to be about the same, but he's going to have his own legal problems that he's going to find ways to spin. And I feel he's going to be more desperate this time around to win. Some people say he was surprised to win. Like, this is what some of the insiders mentioned the first time he did. Like, he was actually shocked because of all the polling indicated he didn't really have a chance over Hillary Clinton. And there he was standing as a victor. But this time around, I think it's a completely different thing. He looks at himself as the front runner for all of this. And if he is let down this time around, it's going to be like a bomb goes off with the Republican Party. It's going to be like almost a new beginning. It's almost like everything's going to change, I think, in the Republican Party if he loses here. So I don't know if I'm looking forward to that, but I hope that they get to debate and they actually do that. I'm guessing he'll be up for it. Maybe Joe Biden skips the debate. Who knows? Maybe he'll be the one to skip this time around. And he skips pretty much everything else. He'll decide to take a vacation that week, like he does every other week, and maybe 50% of his presidency on vacation.
Well, they've scheduled 3 of them, just so you know. They've scheduled 3 debates, and if they show, there will be 3. But I've heard somebody else, it might have been Mark Cox said this. He goes, my guess is that what'll happen if it is Biden-Trump is that they'll get close to one of those debates, and Biden will go, I'm not debating an insurrectionist. And he just won't show up. That'll be his excuse.
That's it. I can see that happening. Okay, there's a lot to get to on the show here today. Hans von Spakovsky is going to join us. He's a senior legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Got a lot of legal questions I want to throw at him. There's another legal question I want to bring up in the next hour, and it's here in the Detroit area at Wayne State University. There's a 400-pound dude, 44 years old, going through college. He wants to be a gym teacher, and he said, I want to be a gym teacher, but I don't want to ever come in for it. I want to just do this remotely. And the school said, in order to be a teacher, you have to get basically practical experiences inside of a school. He said, I can't do that. I'm 400 pounds. So they said, well, I guess you can go through your courses, but you're not getting a certification to be a teacher. So he's suing. And I thought that's such a great legal question. Brad Young is going to join us in the next hour, asking him about that too. So much more to get to. I'm so happy to be with you here today. I'm Ryan Recker filling in. If you want to find me online, Ryan Recker Radio. Hans von Spakovsky is going to join us after the break on 97.1 FM Talk.
I got my head checked by a jumbo jet. It wasn't easy, but nothing is.
I'm Dr. Nick Barnes at Health From Within Family Chiropractic in Rock Hill. At Health From Within, our mission is to transform the way you manage your health by bringing you the truth about health and healing. We use proven techniques to remove interference in the nervous system and maximize health naturally, without drugs or surgery. Connect with me at healthfromwithinstl.com and join me for Maximize Living on this station every Sunday at 8 a.m. or download the Maximize Living podcast, healthfromwithinstl.com.
We're going abroad for the first time in years, to Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Start learning a new language today at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
AMCO presents Bet You Didn't Know.
Bet you didn't know that your car's transmission is made up of 800 pieces. Also, bet you didn't know that AMCO's fixed over 40 million transmissions. and that AMCO offers a nationwide warranty.
AMCO offers easy payment plan options for most any credit situation, so you can fix it fast and pay it off slow at AMCO.
That's AMCO, AA, MCO.
Jewels on Hampton and St. Louis Hills is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches on site. Jewels on Hampton is a premier jeweler featuring Alvanza's jewel art designs with an exquisite selection of diamonds, semi-precious stone jewelry, and vintage watches. Their expert design team can restyle your jewelry to today's contemporary style. They also do jewelry and watch repair. Need extra cash? Jewels on Hampton is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches. Bring in your collectibles and clocks and sports memorabilia and figurines too. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton, just 3 blocks south of Chippewa, and jewelsonhampton.com. Call them at 314-752-5000, 314-752-5000, and jewelsonhampton.com. Jewels on Hampton.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Save up to 20% on a new HVAC system when you bundle it with attic insulation. 9 out of 10 homes are under-insulated. For a free estimate on attic insulation, visit aircomfortservice.com.
97.1 FM Talk. You're here. Not because of a label, but because conservative ideas actually work. St. Louis is home for conservative talk. This is 97.1 FM Talk. You're listening to The Annie Frey Show. Follow Annie on Twitter @Annie Frey Show.
Welcome back. Thanks for having me on today. Joining us now is a senior legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation, Hans von Spakovsky. I know he's
We the people of the United States
More perfect.
are forming a more perfect union.
Heritage legal expert Hans von Spakovsky.
Hello, Hans. How are you today? Happy New Year.
Hey, I'm doing just fine, and same to you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, getting so close to it. I wanted to try to probe your legal mind about the Hunter Biden case and the threats of subpoenas and really what happens during a process like this. So I first wanted to start by going back a few weeks when Hunter Biden said, yeah, I'll come in and testify, but I want it to be open to like a public hearing. And then basically they said, well, we're not giving you special privilege. So no. And I'm guessing part of the reason to make it public is so there's a little bit of hesitancy to give all of the information. Maybe some of it could be somewhat classified information. So he thought maybe that would help him limit the amount of damage that's brought in front of him. So they essentially said, okay, no, we're not doing this public hearing. We're going to do it like we do anything else. You're not getting special privileges. And then he doesn't show. So now you get to the point where there's a few times he hasn't, and they're threatening to subpoena him. So what happens in a process like this when you have a witness, someone you want to talk to, but they refuse to cooperate?
Well, he actually was subpoenaed and refused to show up. So now they need to vote to hold him in contempt. Now, the problem is that when Congress holds you in contempt, the contempt citation, well, who's it enforced by? The U.S. Justice Department. And I kind of doubt that they are willing to enforce it. You'll recall, for example, that when Lois Lerner, the former head of the IRS, was subpoenaed for her testimony. This is the woman who used the IRS to go after conservative organizations. Mm-hmm. She was held in contempt, and the Justice Department refused to enforce it against her. What ought to happen is, right now, Hunter Biden ought to be in jail. And let me tell you why. Remember, in September, the Justice Department filed new gun charges against Hunter Biden. They indicted him on gun charges, and the judge released him pending the trial date. But the order of release included conditions. And one of the first conditions was that Hunter Biden not violate any other federal, state, or local law? Well, it is a criminal violation of federal law to not respond to a subpoena to a Congress. And so he clearly has broken federal law. And the judge in that case ought to immediately order Hunter Biden's arrest. And if I was the head of House committee, I would immediately be filing documents with that judge asking him to jail him. I would also be asking the Justice Department, to enforce a contempt citation, but it'd be a lot faster to go to that federal judge.
Wow. Okay, so let's tie this into something else. And I look back at some of the other claims that the House Republicans are bringing up, including that Joe Biden may have interfered into this investigation. Now, we do have testimony that people have come forward to say that whenever they tried to investigate this, they were told you're not allowed to, right? And we want to know how high that came up. I think that could play a part in it. So let's say there is a contempt of court, and let's say that they do go forward with that. And let's say that because of it, nothing happens. Would that basically, to me, indicate that there is interference going on, and this is just more evidence of interference, considering this is the president of the United States' son? And would that give more leverage for House Republicans that are looking at him for a possible impeachment that, yeah, there is interference, and that's not what we want a president to do in part of an investigation?
The answer to that is yes. Merrick Garland, if Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, said, well, I'm just not going to enforce the contempt citation, Democrats would probably try to claim, well, that's Merrick Garland making that decision, not the president. Merrick Garland is not an independent actor. He works directly for the president. And the president is the chief legal officer of the United States, not the Attorney General. So Joe Biden has the power and authority to overrule any decision by Merrick Garland not to enforce that contempt citation, and he ought to do that. He ought to show that there's not going to be a double standard for members of his family. So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I think the Biden administration, through their press secretary, said that he would not interfere, but I think that's a big old lie because I think we've already seen it and are still seeing it. So is that a crime in itself to interfere? Let's say Joe Biden, we find some of his emails, possibly through, secret emails that he's concealed through the U.S. government. If we find that he actually was directly involved in this sort of conspiracy to interfere with the investigation, is that a crime potentially being done by Joe Biden?
I think that would be difficult to argue in court because of the fact that he's the chief legal officer. So while it might not be a criminal violation of law, it would be grounds for impeachment because obviously a president is not supposed to act in his own self-interest and to protect his family from proper and reasonable criminal investigations. So the proper thing for the House to do, if that happens, or if it is happening, would be impeachment.
Right. So it's more of an ethical problem that would need to be addressed.
Yes.
Got it. Hans von Spakovsky joining us here with the Heritage Foundation. And I also want to talk about all these secret email addresses that we still don't know about. And the documents aren't being turned over. I think I read an article just this morning. It was something like 14 pages of 80,000 have been disclosed so far. So House Republicans are still waiting to see more about what's going on with these secret emails, and they're not getting it. That's a whole different problem by itself. Do you think that the White House and the Joe Biden and his people around him sandbagging and not releasing this information is a big deal?
Oh, yeah, no, I think it is because, the typical reaction of folks is, look, if, as you claim, you did nothing wrong, if, as you claim, you had no involvement in Hunter Biden's business, then why would you not release all of the emails going back and forth between you, Hunter Biden, and his business partners, and the emails, whether it was under your real name or an assumed name to try to fool the email communication system, why would you not want to release that? Wouldn't you want that to come out so that you can show the world that your claim that you weren't involved is really true? It tells you a lot about them that they don't want to release this information.
Yeah, and part of this is, I understand the argument that when someone says if you have nothing to hide, then just do it, but you're kind of setting yourself up for a trap in that sense and maybe giving up some of your privacies. But that's thrown out the window when you're talking about an elected official in a government email address. These things should be subject to freedom of information requests, particularly if they're of interest of the public and the press.
Yeah, and that's particularly true when your email communications are not even concerned with the public's business, but you're using government facilities, government communication facilities to conduct private business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to ask you about this whole 14th Amendment thing. And we saw Michigan just recently come out and said he's going to be on the ballot. Donald Trump will be on the ballot. We're not going through with these challenges. Now, in Colorado, that's where the big one was. Are you disappointed the Supreme Court decided to handle it the way they did? Or, that's kind of standard practice for the Supreme Court. They kind of have to wait for it to go through the proper channels for them to see it.
Well, in fact, just yesterday, a petition was filed with the U.S. Supreme Court by the Colorado Republican State Central Committee asking the court to take up the case and reverse what the Colorado Supreme Court did. So that's the right thing to do in that case. What the Supreme Court refused to take last week was the separate case, the separate filing of Jack Smith, the special counsel, who tried to jump the entire appeals court process and asked the Supreme Court to take up the issue of presidential immunity, which Donald Trump has raised in the criminal indictment against him in the District of Columbia. There, the court said, no, we're not going to skip the appeals process. And that was the right thing to do because there's no reason to hurry that issue. The Colorado case is different. That needs to be taken up by the Supreme Court and as soon as possible because we've got primary elections coming up almost immediately.
Right. We're talking in the next couple of weeks. Legally speaking, I know that House Republicans have a lot of work to do starting in January. How optimistic are you that their findings, their investigation will be fruitful and something will come from it? Because some people have been skeptical.
Oh, I think it's going to be very fruitful. Look, it already has been. All of the claims made by the White House have been shown to be absolute lies. The banking records show that. The email communications that they have been able to actually get show that. And so does the testimony of Hunter Biden's former business partners, all of whom says, oh yeah, Joe Biden, the father, was involved in the business. And in fact, Hunter Biden was selling his access to his father as vice president. So they've already uncovered a lot of evidence, and I think there's going to be more coming out.
Yep, I think so too. And while we're at it, I would love to find out if the talking points of the White House are being directed to members of the media that use almost the same verbiage in unison over and over again, because I want to know what a lot of the media people's involvement in this is when it comes to Donald Trump. I do think there is some sort of bulletin points that they are told to follow if they want access to Joe Biden, which they'll never get because he doesn't show up anyway. So I want to know how really deep this goes in where the press plays a part in this in order to, for the past 4 or 5 years, listen, not 4 or 5 years, but for the past 2 years, them saying insurrection, I feel like that was a calculated thing that they tried to use as propaganda to get out there to put us where we are today. And I think they played a part in that.
Oh, no, I think you are absolutely right. And look, whenever folks leave Democratic administrations, where do half of them go? They all get hired by liberal media channels like MSNBC and CNN, and they just parrot the lines of the Democratic Party. We see that all the time.
Right. Well, if people wanted to read your work, Hans, where can they go?
Go to heritage.org, and actually got a piece at Fox News today about the integrity and security of the election process next year and what we can all expect.
Fantastic. Senior legal fellow, Heritage Foundation, a book, Our Broken Elections, How the Left Changed the Way You Vote. You can get that out now. Hans von Spakovsky, thank you so much for coming on to 97.1 FM Talk.
Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Almost said KFTK, but because I heard that earlier, apparently you had Brian Kilmeade here on KFTK earlier, and that made the national feed. This radio station made the national show, which was very cool. All right, coming up after the break, Wiggins America. I look forward to this on 97.1 FM Talk.
Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell, Joe DiMaggio, Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker, television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe.
Cold weather is here in St. Louis, and you need to make sure that you've got air comfort service right there ready to call in your phone, 314-513-0091. Anytime you call Air Comfort Service, if you need them for an emergency 24 hours a day, they are there for you. If you just need to have your furnace looked at or you're thinking about replacing it, let them know that the Annie Frey Show sent you. With this cold weather that is here, it's time to schedule your heating system check. You can keep your HVAC system running efficiently throughout the entire year in 2024 with routine system checks from Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. A lack of maintenance is going to cause breakdowns, and it may end up being a lot more expensive to repair or replace your unit in your house. So get on the schedule with Air Comfort Service and have them come out and do those routine maintenance checks. Air Comfort Service maintenance plans start at only $15 a month, and if you pay monthly, your 12th month is free. Call them at 314-513-0091 for more information, or visit them right now at aircomfortservice.com.
Warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season and a happy new year from your friends at Odyssey and Onder Law Injury Lawyers.
Which issue will motivate independent voters most in 2024? That is the subject of our Annie Frey YouTube live chat poll of the day. Which issue will motivate independent voters most in 2024? Your four choices: the border and immigration, the economy, abortion, or foreign issues. Let us know your thoughts. Love to know going into 24 what you think is going to motivate those kind of swing voters. It is 12:41 right now. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 furnace tune-up.
Whatever happens next happens here. Your trusted voice for 23 years. This is St. Louis's home for conservative talk. 97.1 FM Talk.
And welcome back to the Annie Frey Show. I'm Ryan Recker filling in. One of my favorite segments is this Wiggins America.
Wiggins! Oh, Wiggins! Thank you for that kind introduction, Ryan Recker. I appreciate it. What I have here for you is something that's not necessarily news of the day, but it did happen this week or at the end of last week. Rand Paul has released his airing of grievances for Festivus.
Yes.
Are you familiar with this?
Yes. Love it, yes.
Yeah, every year at about this time of year, I guess, Festivus is supposed to be like the 23rd, I guess, of December. So he releases the report of the most egregious, stupid spending that the government has done this year. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I thought this year was a little bit weak. Normally it's the craziest things you could possibly imagine. And there are some crazy ones. I'm not going to say there aren't. But the ones that he highlighted more were like legitimate spending issues, a little bit more than just the kooky things that he normally does.
It's so funny. So when there's a new video game or something coming out, or this is a better example, a new Apple product, people get hyped for the presentation of it. So there you are on your couch watching the live feed, eating your popcorn, waiting for the presentation of grievances, and you said, "Oh, this is a letdown this year."
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was a little surprised. Now, the headline still has the crazies, and I'll get to that. I'm just not going to start with that. What he said was, Rand Paul said, last Festivus, we lamented over the national debt reaching an astronomical $30 trillion, if you recall. Well, in 1 year, he says, shockingly, in one short year, the career politicians and bureaucrats in Washington have managed to approach $34 trillion in debt without so much as a second thought. And he goes on to lament both parties approving the spending limit for the debt, which was part of the source of so much of the drama that we had with the Speaker of the House this year and all that. Of course, that's not related to Rand Paul in the Senate, but he does mention some of those things. But as far as the actual Festivus airing of grievances report goes, he highlights that $38 million in COVID payments went to dead people just this year.
I saw the picture that was posted with it, and did you see it, the envelope? On the front of it, it's basically they mail these checks out blindly. And on the front of the envelope, there's a checks box that says, if this person's dead, check this box and send it back.
Yeah.
Like that's the honor system,
right.
Sending millions of dollars out on the honor system.
Oh, yeah. There's nobody actually checking these things. And what's amazing is most of what he highlighted, keep in mind, this is 2023 we're talking about. This isn't 2020 or 21 or 22. This is just this year. Most of what he's talking about is abuses still in COVID spending. There was a scandal that he highlighted that I had never heard of, and he said this like, oh, yeah, everybody's heard of Barbenheimer, which I guess Barbenheimer was...
Wasn't that the movies that came out this summer?
It was Barbie and Oppenheimer. They called it Barbenheimer.
Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about, right?
That's what this is referencing.
Oh.
But this is called Barbenheimer.
Okay.
Because apparently there was, I'll just read it here. It says $800 billion COVID Paycheck Protection Program. We all remember that, was in this report. The program, which offered loans to small business owners to keep their workforce employed during the COVID-19 pandemic, used now a sketchy AI system. So there's nobody checking this thing. A sketchy AI system to verify proof of identity, which people took tremendous advantage of. And the reason the Barbenheimer thing was a name at all, it said in lieu of actual employee IDs, some fraudsters uploaded headshots of Barbie dolls to the AI system could not tell the difference between the head of a Barbie doll and a real person. And so they got accepted, and the proof of identity got approved by the AI system, and they send checks to the scammers like it was all fine.
Amazing.
The actual number that they say of that $800 billion that was swindled, they said it's really hard to know because you do have to then go back with a person and check every single one of these things now. But they found enough to know that it was a real scam that people were using.
I think here's what happens if you're the government. If you're smart, but the government's not smart. But here's what you do. If someone uploaded a Barbie head, they're automatically guilty. No need for trial. And you just throw that person in jail for fraud. I say you skip the legal system altogether. They were obviously in the wrong. Throw them in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really going to argue with you. If you uploaded anything other than a real picture of your human face, you probably were committing fraud in some way or another. Because so many people uploaded real pictures of themselves and still were frauding the system, you know?
They have to have done that and said, no way this works. And then it works. And do you think some of them start sweating thinking, oh, I'm in so much trouble. I can't believe that worked. I thought it was going to be denied. And now they're so far down the road, there's no correcting it. And then they're in real trouble.
I just think it's amazing that if you're going to commit fraud, that you would decide to take a picture of a doll, which if any person were to ever see, you'd immediately go, wait a minute, that looks fake, instead of just picking a random image from the internet or taking a picture of somebody in a cafe or something. You know, that would be really hard to detect. So I'm sure that also has happened. But the fact that people were using Barbie dolls in the pictures just shows how flagrant they are, how they don't care, and they know they're not going to get caught.
Yep. Here's another thing. This is what I would also like to see because of the blatant fraud that goes on. I would almost be willing to pay agents overtime for these people to get arrested like on a holiday, like Christmas. They're about to sit down with their family and someone bust in and arrest them for something that egregious. Like that's the day they decide to take them in.
Yeah, right. So just to kind of cap off the COVID spending issues, here's one that he highlights that he says, technically, this is not a crime, but a huge portion of that money from the COVID relief was about $200 million, was doled out during the pandemic to entertainment venues and performers. We remember this because everybody's going, oh, no, I can't do my tour, whether you're a circus or a musician or whatever. Like I'm going to lose all this revenue because all the bars are closed and stuff like that. So they put together this program as part of this PPP money to give out to entertainers. And the program, Rand Paul said, was supposed to provide a lifeline to small entertainment businesses nationwide.
And the Lakers were one of them. I remember that.
Did you see that? That's not a part of this report, but I do remember seeing something about that. In reality, it says the report from Rand Paul found that they doled out more than $200 million to dozens of famous music artists and their touring companies.
Whoa.
So-called small business owners such as Post Malone, Lil Wayne, Chris Brown, Smashing Pumpkins, Nickelback, all were receiving.
They're Canadian.
Oh, that's true. Hey, take that back from them for sure.
They shouldn't even get U.S. dollars. Get out of here.
Nickelback received $2 million just for nothing. Just here you go. Here's free money. Post Malone, Lil Wayne, Chris Brown all received between $2 million and $10 million apiece. Other artists that took from this money, Usher received $3.1 million, LeAnn Rimes $2 million, Melissa Etheridge $3.9 million.
More like LeAnn Crimes.
Hey,
right?
Thank you. Slipknot. Is anybody? I guess Slipknot. I mean, they're still a thing. I thought this was like early 2000s, but Slipknot, $9.7 million.
Why did they get more? They're hurting more. That's why you haven't heard from them.
I don't know, but these are. And he says, while some of these claims to funds were used to keep supporting staff, there was no check and balance. So you didn't have to prove that you were keeping your staff employed or anything. You just took the money and you were living the high life if you're Slipknot.
Millions of dollars to Slipknot.
Isn't that amazing? Because what you think of, is, at least I did at the time, was, we want to support these coffee shop artists, that this is how they make a living. They're going from bar to bar. They're just trying to make a living doing music on the side. They can't do that anymore. So, okay, we're going to dole out, which is stupid anyway, but that was how it was presented. We're going to dole out, a couple of $10,000 here and there to these people. But these are
That's
huge
great.
artists.
And it's the same argument that a lot of people are making right now. When you have a billionaire like Taylor Swift or someone like that that's out there taking, public money, you have to really question why they're eligible for that. You're talking about millionaires that were eligible for millions of extra dollars. You have to really question, maybe from the onset, that this was a bad idea, which, I don't know, a lot of us said from the very beginning.
Yeah, maybe we just don't shut the country down and expect that everything is going to be okay. Well, we'll just float them a bunch of free money. That'll be fine. There'll be no consequences for that 3 years later that we're still living. I want to point out a couple comments here. Brian M. says, this is ridiculous. Millions to bands and artists for what? And then follows it up. This country is run by clowns. Thank you. I appreciate that. A couple of the more ridiculous ones before we get to the top of the hour here, because this is what he's famous for. So, all the real issues. And he acknowledges, too, I think, maybe not in this specific article, but I've heard him say before that while the fair airing of grievances gets some media attention, he said ultimately the problem is that we're giving away, I think it's something like 70% of our budget is allocated to social programs that they can't really even do anything about. They're just locked in money that's not discretionary in any way. So much of this is actually just coming from the discretionary spending. There's one. Okay, I'll start with this one of the ridiculous ones. The Pentagon chose to spend $8,295 on a lobster tank.
Yep.
From a restaurant equipment company in Springfield, Virginia. So that must be a
Red
really
Lobster.
nice. Yeah. Either they're eating them or they're viewing them. Either way, that's a very, very nice lobster tank for almost $9,000.
I hate this. This is so stupid. Like you hear about these tech companies, they're like, oh, we have sleep pods and slides, and oh, now they have fresh lobster tanks.
Yeah,
but these are private companies. We're talking the government.
This is the government.
The luxury of lobster tanks.
Now, this one is the most egregious and ridiculous of all of them that I found on this list. The government funding for brutal experiments on primates made multiple pages of this year's Festivus report. First, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases spent nearly $500,000 to forcibly change the gender of male monkeys.
Forcibly?
Yeah, I don't think the monkeys were choosing this, is I think what they're saying.
Wait, you're saying that they didn't come for treatment? They just were forced upon?
Well, they came to get allergy shots, and then they said, we're going to do something else while you're here, and the monkeys were pretty upset, I think.
No. So that's different than neutering. This is we're completely losing everything.
What Rand Paul said, that's right. The NIAID is using $477,000 of your tax money to fund the forced feminization of male rhesus monkeys in this report. So great. I mean, this gets approved.
Why did they do it?
I don't know. The reason is to study whether male monkeys pumped full of feminine hormones were more susceptible to HIV. So they were also not just changing their gender, they were pumping them full of HIV virus.
Oh, okay. Rand Paul, I love Rand Paul, but if he wanted to win the year, he would have had that announced by Alex Jones. Like he would have said, Alex, I need you to read this one for me.
Yeah, right. Have Alex Jones come into Congress, just read a couple lines.
They're feminizing the monkeys. That would have
Don't
been
even get me started on the frogs. The last thing that Paul wanted to say as we close out this segment here is that his biggest issue is with the $659 billion the government paid just to cover the interest on its debt. He says it doesn't take a genius to predict the dangers that come with spending money that the government just does not have. Apparently, robbing Peter to pay Paul is not a sound fiscal strategy.
Oh, wow. Oh, who would have thought? Yeah, we're in trouble. And can we just not pay our bills, kind of like how the government wants to allow anyone with a student loan? Can we just stop doing that?
I mean, it sounds great. I got to give you that. Like when they say it, if you're a recipient, you go, man, that sounds pretty good, pretty short term, Like, hey, here's a bunch of free money in 2020 for your business. We're going to shut your business down, but we're still going to pay you. You go, hey, that doesn't sound too bad. Oh, we're not going to tell you, though, you're going to have to raise prices by 25% over the next couple of years, and your clientele is going to be hurting because of that.
We have there's a great story I wanted to bring up with you in the next hour. And I know you like robot stories because, you being an author, writing about robots and such.
Love it.
It's called transhumanism. Have you heard this term?
I have.
Oh, you have? Whoa.
I have.
Okay. There's a new opinion piece on transhumanism and how we need to embrace it in order to survive as a society. And I wanted to run this idea by you coming up in the next hour. Also, a lawsuit that's going on here in the Michigan area in Detroit. There's a college in a 400-pound dude that wants to be a gym teacher but doesn't want to actually be in the gym. He wants to do it remotely. The college said no. We'll get your take on that lawsuit with Brad Young coming up, too, on 97.1 FM Talk.
Marie, is that you?
Oh, hi, Barb. How you doing?
Better now. Did you know we had a little health scare with Jeff?
Oh, no. What happened?
Well, he had been short of breath and was really tired a lot of the time. He just thought he was getting old and was out of shape, but it turns out it was heart valve disease.
How did you figure it out?
He finally went to the doctor, and she was able to listen to his heart and detected the problem. I didn't realize it, but heart valve disease is more common than you'd think. They were able to replace the valve, and he's feeling so much better now.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
More than 5 million Americans are diagnosed with heart valve disease every year, but most people know nothing about the condition, and it can be deadly if untreated. That's why it's important to listen to your heart and ask your doctor if your symptoms may be due to heart valve disease or if you're at high risk. A message brought to you by Heart Valve Voice US. For more information about the symptoms and treatments for valve disease, go to heartvalvevoice-us.org.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
KFTK FM Florissant. From the Under Law Injury Lawyers, GetJim.com studio. 97.1 FM Talk. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
What's in it for the U.S.? I'm Therese Crowley, Fox News. President Biden enjoying a Virgin Islands vacation and dispatched his Secretary of State and DHS Secretary to Mexico City to negotiate help for the border crisis. With Mexico's president saying the U.S. agreed to reopen rail crossings, but what help is Mexico giving? Fox's Grady Trimble.
Mexico's President Obrador this morning said the two sides agreed to open rail crossings at the border that had been closed because of the surge of migrants. But he says fentanyl hardly came up. Notably, while the meeting was taking place, and still right now, a group of thousands of migrants is making its way through Mexico toward the United States, and it's not clear how either country plans to deal with that caravan.
Word from an Israeli kibbutz that Israeli-American hostage Judy Weinstein Haggai is declared dead in Gaza. Just last week, her husband, Gad Haggai, was the first American-Israeli hostage to be declared dead, but Hamas is still holding the bodies of the elderly couple in their early 70s. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu met hostage families today, saying, "We're holding negotiations as we speak, working to bring everyone back." As Israel's air and ground offensive pounds Gaza with attacks on infrastructure in 10 Palestinian cities, including Ramallah.
Dozens more people in cities, towns, and refugee camps were killed overnight as Israeli forces continue strikes in Gaza. The air and ground offensive against Hamas has widened to most of the territory. The war has already killed more than 20,000 Palestinians and driven about 85% of the population of more than 2 million from their homes. It comes as there are growing concerns about the number of Israeli soldiers wounded in the war. Israel's defense ministry says roughly 3,000 members of the country's security forces have been hurt and more than 160 soldiers have been killed.
America is listening to Fox News.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare information guide absolutely free. Call 800-919-3200. That's 800-919-3200. 800-919-3200.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Still a chance of a little bit of wet snow, a little bit of light rain this afternoon. 39 and windy. Tonight, last of the wave coming through on the backside of the low. Periods of wet snow. 32 for the low, a ½ inch to an inch, mainly on the grassy surfaces. No real big deal. Friday, a mix of wet snow and a little bit of light rain. 39. We clear it out in time for the holiday weekend. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
On the Mark Cox Morning Show, we like to start the year right. That's why we're broadcasting live from the Missouri State Capitol Wednesday, January 3rd. It's opening day of the legislative session, and we'll be there. That's Wednesday, January 3rd, starting at 5 a.m.
Stewart's American Mortgage is the home of the bagel loan, and he's waiting for your phone call. Right now, he has every possible asset at his fingertips. Has made him very, very successful in the lending industry because he has a customer-first mindset and a customer-first business model. Your number that you need to know is his cell phone number. It's 314-324-4440. That's 314-324-4440. When you reach out to that number to ask him about your mortgage or maybe even a refinance on your home because rates have potentially come down from their super high highs, you get to refinance without any closing costs that are going to be incurred by you. So why not secure that lower interest rate while you can get it without any of those punitive charges up front? Stewie's waiting for your phone call or your text, 314-324-4440. Reach out to him right now and make sure you mention the Annie Frey Show when you do. Join the 97.1 listeners who have used the bagel loan. You can Google the bagel loan, NMLS number 226715.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Hi, I'm Tom Hoffman, president of Tom Hoffman Heating and Air Conditioning. I'll beat any competitor's price on a new furnace right now. Just call me, 314-471-7625.
It's winter. Let's talk about garage doors. Your garage doors. Is it loud? Letting cold air in around the frame? Overhead Door Company of St. Louis will make it all better. For just 2 weeks, they're providing their full 26-task garage door tune-up for just $69. That's just $69 for up to 3 garage doors and openers. You need this done for winter, so why not now? And for just $69. Schedule now at overheaddoorsstlouis.com. overheaddoorsstlouis.com.
Hi, this is Jeff Singer with Goldblatt Singer, Attorneys at Law. On behalf of everyone at Goldblatt Singer, happy holidays. Take care out there, and remember, if you need help, Goldblatt Singer is just a phone call away.
This hour of the Annie Frey Show is brought to you by Ruler Foods. Low prices, no coupons. Ruler Foods.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what you're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Frey Show.
So happy to be with you here, filling in for Annie Frey. I'm Ryan Recker. You can find me online, Ryan Recker Radio. And Ryan Wiggins, I got to say, there's this one book. It's a fantastic book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called The Life of Human. Have you heard of this one?
Leah, have you ever heard of that one? Or
No.
No? Okay. I've heard it's pretty good, though.
It's great. It gets great reviews online.
Yeah,
it's
does.
by a person by the name of, Ryan Wiggins.
Yeah, he didn't go by a pseudonym or anything.
No.
Yeah, he just used his real name on the book. That was weird.
I'm sorry.
Same name as you. What a coincidence.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I went to the library the other day, and I saw that they highlight local authors, and they had my book up. and in the library. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I looked to see in the card catalog thing in the front to see how many times it had been checked out. And to my disappointment, there is no card catalog anymore.
Right, they don't do that.
I have no
It's all
idea
digital.
if it has been checked out or how many times, because I would love to know.
Did you pick it up to feel it, see if the pages have been bent, anything like that would indicate how many times it's been read?
Yeah, not really, but we were at the Ruler Foods remote a couple of weeks, not the most recent one, but before that we were in Collinsville, and a listener, Katie, who tunes in a lot on our chat, actually, she brought my book in for me to sign to Ruler Foods. Now, it was a library book, though. She said, I haven't bought it yet. I think she was going to give it a shot and see if it was any good. But she asked the Columbia Library, Illinois, if she could take it to me and have me sign it. And they said, absolutely, go for it. So I did sign that book in that library. But she did say she started reading it and liked it enough that she downloaded the ebook. So.
It's so funny. Well, I mean, I purchased the book and I forced my wife to read it, and she gave it a good review. So I remember I had you on to discuss that after it came out. And wouldn't that be great? You walk into a store or a library and you open it up and it's signed and you're like, wait a minute, that's not my signature.
You know what's funny is a bunch of people at the Brian Kilmeade event, the line was pretty long at his event. And so a couple of people asked me to sign Brian's book. I was like, I guess I can. I don't know. But it had to be weird if they went up to get Brian's signature after mine.
Yeah.
If it was already signed by Ryan.
Yeah. Well, I figured this topic would be one you would enjoy, transhumanism, which makes sense that you know what that is. How would you define transhumanism?
It's moving back and forth between being a human and not being a human. So just like transgenderism would be moving back and forth between genders, this is moving back and forth within your species.
Oh, well, I guess this is a little bit different than the way I read this through the article. So essentially what they were saying was people using technology integrated into their body.
Oh,
so
okay.
This might be a little bit different.
So it's
in
like
that sense.
enhanced humans.
Right, exactly. So, some people have implants or the idea that there'd be implants in the future that may modify you in some sort of way that you'd use in your daily life. I think in a way we looked at it as like, okay, let's put a chip in your brain and you'll be able to remember more things. Or let's say, I don't know, you had a stroke and you can't use your hand, but now you can because that fixed it. Or one of your eyes went out and you're blind in the left eye, but you put a plant chip in there, and then next thing you know, the robotic eye can help you see again. 20/20 vision.
I think that definition actually still does work for this, because what they're saying is now a part of you is not human. A part of you is robotic or is made of technology. So you are you're moving away from being purely human.
So the author of this opinion piece on the Hill, his first name's Zoltan, which that's a strong first name.
This is what you have to do if your name is Zoltan.
Zoltan Istvan is the person's name, and it sounds like Pig Latin. Maybe it is, and I'm just not catching this. So Zoltan writes about this, and he says that while some express concerns about the ethical implications of potential risks, advocating for the preservation of quote-unquote natural humanity, there's a compelling case to be made for embracing technological enhancements beyond the means of just improving the human experience. So his argument is, in the future, the technology is going to advance to the point where we're going to have to allow the integration of technology into our bodies, and we're going to have to go beyond that. We have to accept that as equal to natural human bodies, and you can't discriminate against someone that may have sort of a technological advantage. So we look at the trans debate that goes on today, and a lot of times we focus on things like, guys and women's sports and the natural advantages that men have when it comes to sportings. And you can debate that here today. He's saying this goes even further. For example, if someone has a biological arm and you can throw a pitch at 150 miles an hour, you have to treat that the same as anyone else on the baseball team. Like, he's saying that in order for the rights to be, rights of people, integration of electronics or chips or any type of technology has to be treated equally as any other person that may not have it. And that's what transhumanism is going to have to be in the future.
That's going to be tough. Do you remember that golfer who they were saying had an advantage because I think he had one artificial leg or something like that. I'm not getting the story exactly right, but it was involving a golfer who had some sort of enhanced body limb or something. And they said, no, you can't. You know what? It was just that he had to ride in a cart to get to his shots. Right. That's what it was.
I remember that.
But it was because he couldn't walk. And so that kind of stuff is stuff we're already kind of dealing with, and I'm sure we'll continue to.
So I knew a dude that lost a finger, like a half a finger when he was younger. And he said in high school that gave him an advantage as a pitcher because he can throw the ball differently because of his stub. And maybe we're looking at it the wrong way. Instead of adding things to the body, we need to start taking things out to make us better.
Yeah, that's my concern, is not that we would be discriminating against the people with chips in their brains. It's that the people with the chips in their brains would eventually start discriminating against the people without the chips in their brains, because those people are going to be super smart, and they are going to be able to figure out how to do a lot of things that we chipless brain people will not.
Right. So let me read you a part of this opinion piece, and then you'll kind of know some of the basic beliefs of this person without actually knowing Zoltan. It says, the changing environment, including global warming, provide another reason to upgrade ourselves. And then he goes on to talk about how this can actually help fight global warming. So does it all go back to either racism or let's just say, does it all go back to race and global warming anymore when it comes to justifications for everything?
I was really hoping that we were just kidding about that in the first segment. But to hear this guy saying that these enhancements are like, it's like they're trying to find a way to be included in the international community. Like, oh, this is what they have to like. Do. I'll just say that.
I'll say it might be less about inclusion into the international community and more about, hey, I think I'll be eligible for federal dollars if I mention global warming.
That's
and I can get
true.
some money out of the government.
Yeah. I've found that if you use this fake wrist, it could maybe solve racism. Like, oh my gosh, give that guy money.
Yeah, exactly. And then Rand Paul writes about it a couple of years later, and then we all mock it. But, here we are. It says the changing environment, including global warming, provide another reason to upgrade ourselves. Technological enhancements could provide us with the tools needed to thrive in an unpredictable world. From developing resistance to extreme temperatures to new drugs that allow us to survive on less food. Somehow it goes back to the eating bugs thing too, doesn't it? These enhancements could empower us to meet the challenges of the 21st century. So how would you like to know that, let's say, the person has a bionic arm and he's a boxer? And so what do you have to do to counter that? You have to have a bionic brain plate to like counteract how this is going to punch you on the side of the face. And they also say that we need to embrace morphological freedom in transhumanist concept that insists that everyone should have the ability to prove their bodies how they wish as long as it doesn't hurt others. Again, is this going back to the regular trans debate, except that we're adding robot parts now?
You know what? It really is a real debate that's going to happen at some point. It may not be within the next 5 years, but maybe 10 years from now, the Olympic Committee is going to have to look at, okay, this guy had some sort of, had his hip removed and replaced with some like super hip that can go 360 degrees, just something crazy. That stuff's going to be real at some point.
I know. So they'll ask you to pee in a cup or they detect WD-40 or something in there. Oh, I can tell you're using robot parts. There's oil in there. How about Life of Human 2? Could this be a plot point?
Well, hey, I don't want to give away the end of Life of Human 1. But it does lead there.
Like I said, I forced my wife to read it because she's the avid reader, and we did a full book review. And she did tell me how it ended, and I don't remember because it's been a couple of years. Maybe I'll force her to read it again.
Yeah, there's a big surprise as to the fate of one of the characters at the end. It leads well into a number 2. But I got to thank you for mentioning that, though. It is always one of my greatest pleasures in life when somebody comes up and says, hey, I read your book and I liked it. That's just one of the greatest compliments I could ever get.
I know. And here's when reading the book, I hope you find this funny and not offensive. So we were reading it, and my wife, she said, so since it's your friend, do I have to give it a better rating than I normally would? And I said, no, I want you to be honest when you read this book. And she actually really liked it. So she was actually honest the way she said it.
I appreciate
so I'm not just pandering to you during all of this. You probably get that sometimes too. Like, wow, I don't want you to be offended. Like, oh, you're surprised that I could write a book. One of the things that she was really impressed by is that you didn't have like a full-time editor. Didn't you say you had your wife help you with that?
Well, my wife is a very good editor. She's an English teacher. So technically, I don't have an official editor, but my wife is pretty darn good at it. So
right,
and she's cheaper.
Right? Yeah, you save some money.
Exactly.
Save some money, honey. That's what you say. Well, this is how we do it. Keep it inside the family. Do you still sell books? Like, do you get a notification every time a book is sold?
I don't get a notification, but I do get monthly reports, and yeah, it's just like consistent. Not like it's a deluge of book sales, but it's consistent. Yeah.
Did you sell more than Hillary Clinton's book? Like, didn't it come out and she sold like 150 copies or something like that?
I remember that story. I don't remember what the number was. But
she had to go to a Costco, the toilet paper section, to sell them.
Well, you know what's funny is that musicians do this a lot now, and they do it in the book industry too, where if you have a big author or a big musician, the week of their release, their own company will buy hundreds of thousands of copies of the book or the CD or whatever, download. Because that pushes them up in the charts. And then they get positive reporting, and then, it's number 1 on New York Times bestseller list. Oh, that must mean it's good. Then a lot of people buy it. That's the game now.
So how many copies did you buy for yourself?
Yeah.
4. And it didn't do a whole lot because you get a handful of author copies for yourself if you want them. And I took
you have to buy your own book.
Yeah, you do. You got to buy your own book.
Who was that? It was on Fox. Is it Pete Hegseth? Is he still with Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had to go buy his own book. I remember him telling me that story. I had him on when it came out, and he said he had to go buy his own book in the store because he didn't have a copy, but someone wanted it. So he said, I'll just go buy you a copy. So he had to go to the store to buy his own book.
Yeah, unless you have a great publisher, which nobody does anymore, they'll send you some copies of your own book. Otherwise, it's some third party. It's being printed in Missoula, Montana, and you're getting a copy just like everybody else is.
Yeah. Zoltan Istvan was the author of The Transhumanism, and saying that our survival depends on us embracing human enhancements as not just a choice, but in general, a species. I do think there is a difference between someone that uses it to turn back a disability or something that prevents them from having a somewhat normal life. And I use that term normal, meaning that if you depend on someone else to take care of your basic needs, that's a very difficult thing. So if you can find technology, a way to turn that around, and you can be self-sufficient when you weren't before, that's a fantastic use of the technology. But to go even beyond it and even further to say that if someone uses it to, perfect the fastball, and you have to treat them like any other baseball player, then, okay, come on, let's be real here. Let's use technology responsibly and not have this fantasy that if everything goes if it's discovered and invented.
Well, you know what's going to happen is that eventually these enhancements are going to get so good and so real that somebody's going to go, you know what? The average person can run 6 miles an hour. I can only run 3 miles an hour. Therefore, I need new legs. And so they're going to declare everything to be a disability so that you can always be upgrading yourself.
Look at me walking around with these old meat bags on below the knees. I need something better. So then they just opt for surgery to get rid of their working body part in order to have something that's more mechanical that can help them. That's kind of interesting.
Check the tape. Check it in 10 years. Come back.
That's all you need, 10 years?
Yep.
Okay. Close. Okay. Mark the tape, Leah. 10 years from now, we'll revisit this on this very day.
Sounds good.
All right. Joining us after the break, I gave a message to Brad Young, and I said, this is kind of an interesting legal question that's coming out of a college in Detroit regarding a student that believes he was discriminated against. I can't wait to hear your guys' reaction to this. And I told Brad Young, we're not going to spend a whole segment on this, but just I wanted to get his take on it. So imagine this, you're 400 pounds, you're 44 years old, you want to be a gym teacher, but you don't actually want to go to school to report for your job. Is that discrimination if they don't hire you? We'll talk about that coming up after the break. I'm Ryan Recker, filling in on 97.1 FM Talk.
Reinhold Flooring is dedicated to delivering top-notch flooring solutions with a commitment to customer satisfaction. We ensure your needs are met with the highest level of service. We stand firmly behind our work and make things right when issues arise. Based in St. Louis, we take pride in offering a comprehensive range of services, from crafting custom area rugs to providing manufacturer-approved floor cleaning supplies and even free in-home estimates. We cater to the builder and commercial business with high-quality flooring solutions. Learn more at reinholdflooring.com.
Hello, I am State Treasurer Vivek Malik. There is a program in my office that allows you to save for your loved one's education. The Most 529 program helps families save for K-12, college, trade, or technical schools. Contributions to most 529 accounts grow tax-free and are eligible for a state tax deduction of up to $16,000. Celebrate this holiday season by giving to your child's education. Learn more at MissouriMost.org.
Sponsored by the Missouri State Treasurer's Office.
Mark Cox here for Pro Outdoor. That's ProOutdoor.com, where it is now landscape lighting season. If you haven't seen some of their work, you should go to their website and check out their lighting installations at ProOutdoor.com. They can put this in to make your home stand out from the others in your neighborhood. If you're looking for accent lighting, path lighting, step lighting, you just want to expand your outdoor living space, leave it up to my friends at Pro Outdoor. 636-692-4441, ProOutdoor.com.
The T.R. Hughes Homes for the Holiday Sale is going on now for the rest of the year with unbelievable savings. Hi, I'm Tom Hughes with T.R. Hughes Homes. We have several brand new completed T.R. Hughes homes that are ready now for immediate move-in. Some of these homes are already discounted between $30,000 and $50,000 off regular price, and each home will be discounted another $5,000 every week in December until they're gone. Wait a week or two or three for a lower price and take the chance someone else just bought your dream home. Wooded half-acre home sites in Arbor Valley and Winslow. A beautiful country setting in Riverdale, just 9 minutes from the St. Peter's Deerbergs, and Charlestown Landing in St. Charles City near Newtown. Don't miss this unbelievable chance to save tens of thousands of dollars on completed, move-in ready T.R. Hughes homes. This sale is over on December 31st. All of us at T.R. Hughes Homes would like to say thank you to the several thousand families that have trusted us to build your dream home over the last 30 years. From our family to yours, we would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a safe and prosperous New Year.
How would you like to make no mortgage payments for 2 months? Are you tired of making minimum payments on high-interest credit cards? Is student loan repayment giving you the blues? Your home equity is at an all-time high. Use that equity to save hundreds every month. Call 314-567-GOLD now and give yourself a payment break. That's 314-567-GOLD. Or visit goldenoaklending.com. NMLS 114937.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Air Comfort Service is hiring licensed journeymen. Don't have a journeyman license? Air Comfort Service will help you get it. Get guaranteed hours year-round and more. Apply online at aircomfortservice.com.
The Mark Reardon Show.
Charles Lipson.
What's going on the southern border, the way I look at it, is the president is supposed to faithfully execute the laws.
Yes.
Who in their right mind thinks he's faithfully executing these laws?
Weekdays from 3 to 6. The Annie Frey Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Welcome back. I'm Ryan Recker, filling in for Annie Frey here. And I saw this one lawsuit that was filed in Detroit, where I'm located. It was a 44-year-old student who wants to be a gym teacher. So he goes through Wayne State University and goes through the schooling to become a gym teacher. And he gets to the point where you have to get your in-school practicum credit. You have to actually get hands-on experience to get your teaching degree. Well, the dude's 400-plus pounds. And he said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that. I just want to remote in on my computer. So they said that you can't get practical experience that way. You can't get your teaching certificates if you don't go and follow the program. And he said, you're discriminating against me. I want $1 million. So to talk about this lawsuit, joining us now from Harris-Dell, Fisher & Young, Brad Young, how are you?
Ryan, it is great to talk to you, my friend.
It's been way too long, but whenever there's a legal story like this, you're the first person I think of. I don't know why, but so the guy is 400 pounds, 44 years old, so he's not your typical out of high school type of college student, someone that may be thinking about a second career or maybe just took a long time to get the first one. Who knows? He wants to be a gym teacher, but he wants to do it remotely through Zoom. So do you think because of how big he is, his claim that the reason they don't want to graduate him is because he's overweight could fly in a courtroom, and he may actually have a chance at being successful in this lawsuit?
Well, first of all, I know when I step on a scale, the scale comes up and says one person at a time. And I'm not, I'm not 400 pounds. So, this is a big guy. But first of all, we need to talk about does the ADA even apply here? And it's interesting that in federal courts, going back 20 years, the courts initially said that extreme obesity does not qualify for ADA protection. But then courts kind of went the other way, and they said, well, if it's just because the guy is really heavy, then ADA may not apply. But if it's due to an underlying disease or condition, then it does apply. And in this case, the guy says that he has diabetes, he has hypertension, he has asthma, and that all of those conditions contribute to him being obese. So first of all, the ADA does apply in this situation.
Okay. Now, I think to myself, if I was a hiring principal at a school and this dude said, you know what, I want to be your gym teacher, you're just going to have to roll a TV in every day so I can do this from my own couch, I'd be thinking to myself, oh, please, I don't want to get sued. I don't know what to say in a situation like this.
That's a great point. But as I drilled into this story that you sent me, Ryan, I looked at it. He was supposed to student teach at this school called Dearborn Public Schools. And according to the lawsuit, now we don't know whether this is true or not, but at least according to the lawsuit, the plaintiff here alleges that Dearborn said that they would allow him to student teach a virtual physical education program, but that the University, Wayne State, wouldn't allow it. So that's a whole different wrinkle here, because it's not that Dearborn Public Schools said, dude, you can't teach PE, when you're the size of 3 or 4 people. You can't do that. That's not what happened here. He claims the school said fine. And apparently, again, they roll in a TV while you're going up a rope. I don't know how this is going to work, but and he says, "Come on, go, go, go!" And it's over the TV. It's like it's like a Max Headroom from years ago, where it's just a talking head and a TV. But according to him, the school said yes. It was the university that said no.
Why would the school say yes to that? Number one, you're robbing the kids of an experience of gym, which is probably the favorite class for half of the people in that school anyway.
Sure.
And the other favorite class for the other half is lunch. Those were always the two, number 1 and 2. So, okay. So if the school says they would have signed off on it, but Wayne State University's argument is that's not how we run this program. We don't want to be the one that certifies you for not doing it the way we want you to do it. I don't know. Maybe the guy just gets his degree from a different college. Is that the right answer? Or can you think this lawsuit might actually fly and this guy actually has a chance at it?
I don't know that I want to use the word fly in conjunction with a 400-pound plaintiff, because that's more like flying like a stone. But my point here is that the next legal question, and I'll make it very brief, is whether it applies to students, whether universities have to comply with the ADA when it comes to dealing with students, and they do under Title III of the ADA. So when you put all this in a blender, Ryan, what comes out? Well, what comes out is that he has a plausible cause of action here, and we don't know whether he'll be successful or not, because that will depend on the facts, which all we know at this point is his allegation. But he pleads a valid cause of action against the university, and if the facts are what he claims they are, this guy could actually recover.
Oh boy, let me just say this. I think that it's so hard not to be comical in a situation like this.
I know it
sometimes. You don't want to take advice from, like, let's say you go in and you need to lose weight and your doctor's 400 pounds and they give you advice. You're like, okay, I'm going to listen to this guy. If your gym teacher's 400 pounds and can't get up and it's rolled in on a TV screen, how serious are the kids going to take that? And I don't know.
Sure.
I don't think it's even possible.
And to me, Ryan, it seems like as if Stevie Wonder applies to be the driver's ed teacher, you're going to say, "Whoa, wait a minute here," because you don't want Stevie Wonder teaching driver's ed, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like that at first blush. But if in fact the school said they would have allowed him to do the virtual ed program virtually, then yeah, there might be actual cause of action here.
Brad Young, this is Ryan Wiggins. Hello, my friend.
Hey, Ryan, great to hear your voice, my friend.
So from an outsider's perspective, looking into the law, in my lifetime, and especially within the last 10 to 20 years, it just seems as if whether it's gender or sexuality, or in this case, finding almost like new disabilities, it looks as if they're finding new rights within American law or within the American Constitution that never existed before. Is that the intent of the Constitution, is to make it to where it is kind of movable like that with the times? Or are we applying things to the Constitution that were never intended?
That's a great question. And here's the answer. First of all, the Constitution is designed to be changeable, or what's called mutable, in only one way, and that's you amend the Constitution. That's the only way you can change the Constitution. What we're talking about here today is not a constitutional doctrine, but it's a concept that arises because Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act back in the 70s, and they amended it in the 90s. And so this is the law, pardon the phrase, the law of unintended consequences. Because when the ADA was published, or rather when the ADA was enacted into law, I don't think anyone envisioned that obesity would be considered a disability. But now this is the extrapolation of federal law, not constitutional law, but federal law being applied in ways that the people who drafted the law simply never envisioned.
Brad, when I see a lot of these cases being played out, I mean, we're talking about kind of a goofy case. It's fun to talk about. It has no real consequence for us personally. It's just kind of a crazy case. But you approach this and you go, you know what? There actually is, like I heard you saying, there could be legal merit here. That seems to be the way that all cases should be taken, is by the letter of the law, not necessarily with my opinion of the law, but here's what the law says, so here's how I have to apply it, which is not the way that we see, at least when we talk about politics nowadays. That's not the way it seems to me that we're seeing the law being applied.
Well, yeah, and listen, my real law, I mean, I get to play around on 97.1, and I love doing it. I love filling in, but my real job is employment law. That's what I do day in and day out at my law firm. And I defend companies that are being sued in employment law situations. We've actually had cases dealing with obesity. It is a reality of our ever-increasing size of our society, and I don't mean population-wise, I mean waist size. And this is becoming more and more prevalent. I can tell you multiple cases that my firm has defended where employees are saying, listen, I'm fat, deal with it. You got to accommodate me. And that's what the ADA is designed to do, maybe not in this way, but it's a growing trend in litigation.
All right, this is what I propose, the LBR Act, which is the Let's Be Realistic Act. So let's be realistic here for a moment. And if there's something that happens and you have to lower your chin and then you look over your glasses, it's one of those type of moments, the LBR Act kicks in. Let's be real here. I don't think any employer should have to be put in that position where they're going to get sued because, come on, let's be real. The guy can't do the job if he's, properly do the job. I would argue that a gym teacher would be necessary to do.
Right, but that's not really the argument here, though, Ryan. The argument isn't about employment. The argument is, should the university be forced to give him a degree? And in this instance, if he meets all of the criteria of getting the degree, and if the school said we would have allowed him to do this video student teaching, then really you have to say, should a university make the decision that they're not going to give a guy a degree just because he's extremely obese? And listen, people get degrees for everything these days, and I think that he at least ostensibly meets all the requirements for a cause of action for saying, hey, you can't withhold my degree just because I'm fat.
You know, he should have just went to University of Phoenix. It's online anyway, and they wouldn't have had this problem to begin with.
Well, no, he should have gone. He should have gone to the University of Subway, and he could have lost.
Yeah, like Jared did.
He could have lost the weight like Jared. Of course, we don't want to really bring up Jared's name anymore because he's living at the Gray Bar Motel now. But yeah, he could have gone to the University of Subway, and he would have lost the weight.
Got it. All right. I thought we were only going to do a partial segment here. We ended up doing the whole thing. Hopefully I didn't keep you too long, Brad Young. This is such a fascinating lawsuit. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
It is. No, you can take all the time you want because I'm going to send you a bill. Not a problem.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. Luckily, I'm illiterate, and I can't read that bill, so I don't know if that gives me any defenses. Okay, Brad Young joining us here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brad.
Coming up after the break, MSNBC apparently is bringing Chris Matthews back. How long has Chris Matthews been on the air over there? Like, is it just a holiday fill-in deal? Because the last 2 days in a row, he said some really outlandish things, and I wanted to run a few of those by you because I really think that he, as a broadcaster, thinks, I'm going to say the dumbest, craziest things I can possibly say, and then, since it's MSNBC, they'll be forced to give me my show back and forget about all these other sexual harassment allegations and things that were brought up against me. So we're going to bring that up after the break. I'm Ryan Ricker, filling in on 97.1 FM Talk.
Come to the enchanted attic. Come to the enchanted attic. Come to the enchanted attic, and the mysteries of life shall be revealed. Gaze into a crystal ball to see your future. Breathe in the exotic fragrances of incense, candles, and essential oils. Adorn your body with jewelry encrusted with mystical gemstones from around the world. Why, many who enter the magical realm of the enchanted attic feel as though they have entered another dimension in time and space. But actually, in reality, they have just entered 304 South Main Street in historic St. Charles, home of the famous Enchanted Attic. This is Diane, and you need to come to the Enchanted Attic. It's mystical, magical, and a whole lot of fun. Open every day, free gift with purchase. You'll love this store.
Warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season and a happy new year from your friends at Odyssey and Onder Law Injury Lawyers.
Well, we've been talking about this topic a little bit today. It's the subject of our Annie Frey YouTube live chat poll. Which issue will motivate independent voters most in 2024? So you're not answering necessarily for yourself, but what you think those swing voters are going to be basing their vote on. The options are the border / immigration, the economy, abortion, or foreign issues. Which one do you think will be the motivating factor most for independent voters in 2024? Let us know and leave a comment. We'll read those at the end of the show. 1:41 right now. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 furnace tune-up.
You could be watching this right now. Tune into the Annie Frey Show live stream. YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. You know what? Just type in Annie Frey Show live stream. Find the podcast, on-demand audio, and more at 971talk.com/Annie.
And I'd give up forever to touch you.
Welcome back.
I know that you feel.
All right, so I wanted to play some Chris Matthews for you. And honestly, I didn't realize that he was being used on air at MSNBC. Did you realize Chris Matthews was back?
No, I don't watch MSNBC, but I guess the clip factory's probably churning out some clips if he's saying crazy stuff.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'll give you an option here. Do you want to talk about rural hick voters or abortion? Chris Matthews' take. Which one do you want to go first?
Ooh, I think I want to hear about rural hick voters from him most. So we'll save the best for last, and we'll go with abortion first. Does that work?
All right, let's do that. Okay, here is Chris Matthews' take on abortion in the election. And let's digest this together.
We saw in Ohio where women, I guess mostly women, decided that here's a chance to protect abortion rights. And, you know, sometimes the Dobbs decision, for example, you think it's going to break it one way or break it the other way. Well, it broke it a totally different direction. Abortion rights was about trimesters. during a Roe v. Wade. It was very simple. You had more personal freedom in the beginning of your term, and then later more societal involvement and more restrictive. So that changed it to a freedom issue. The way people talk now about abortion is, do I have a personal freedom over my body or don't I? And in other words, it went the other way. They thought they were going to open it up to restrictions. It opened it the other way. And now I think much more of a freedom agenda. So when people vote for abortion rights, they're voting for personal freedom.
Okay, so Chris Matthews, the way he breaks down the abortion debate is, if you really like freedom, then you have to be okay with abortion. What do you think? Is that a good take?
That's the take that you're going to hear. I actually did my whole Wiggins America yesterday on the two issues that you're going to hear the most from Democrat media. This is one of them. Of course, he's going to yell about it. In fact, all of the Democrat media is going to yell about this because they believe that it's a winner, and so far that has been proven right for them. What I said in that, and I'll say it again today, is that you will never, in their arguments, ever hear about the rights of the baby, because they don't want you to keep your eye on the ball. They want to get your eye off of the idea that this is not just affecting one life, but it's affecting two.
Right. And if you go back also and look at some of the arguments in the extreme nature of abortion, Governor Ralph Northam in Virginia even going as far as saying that abortion includes infanticide, so you can make a decision after the birth is made. Hillary Clinton, you talk about going even up until the moment before birth. We're saying moments before a delivery of a child would be acceptable, because abortion is 100% up to the woman, and the life of the child itself is not a non-factor. And that's why you call it right to life, because the life that is in there is a life, and that needs to be recognized, and that has rights, meaning that they need to also recognize that. So his take is that men and women together can decide on this. We don't really need a constitution or anything else. We need to just look at this as a straight freedom issue, and then we can decide on our own as a society, meaning that if it's swung so far to one side, who needs a constitution or courts? We can just decide on this on our own, and society has spoken. We all want abortions unrestricted all the time. That's the world that Chris Matthews lives in.
Well, he is hitting on one key point there that is true, that this is now being framed as a freedom issue much more than a life or right to life issue. And that will continue to be the case, because that's what wins at the ballot box for Democrats.
I'm going to go back to 2012, that election, and I'm going to tell you one of the things I was afraid of during 2012 is that you're going to get someone that's an independent, that is like a Rand Paul, for example, that is looked at as more as a libertarian. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And they would be so much so a libertarian that they would make this argument that it's a freedom issue and they should be free to abort a child if they so choose. And that's something that I worried about. I thought maybe libertarians would go as far as believing that. But the exact opposite has happened. You find that even those that are, I mean, like the Patriot or Braveheart style, like libertarian, like they want to live off the grid and they want to own machine guns type of people. In tanks, they want bazookas. You know what I'm talking about. That's how much freedom they want. They are even against abortion. And what does that mean? It means that the recognition of a life, and that life has rights, and you are infringing on those rights by killing them. It's unjustified to do so. And okay, I was actually pleasantly surprised that even the libertarian argument wasn't going as far as that. It just seems like basically Democrat and then far liberal are the ones that are advocating. Do you want to hear the other Chris Matthews take?
Yeah, I do.
Angry redneck hicks are going to be a problem in this upcoming election. This is the one, I think, from yesterday.
But I tell you, it's very tough, because people that didn't go to college have a pretty good rage on their hands. That's what you really want in an election, is a rage. It can be black rage or white rage or rural rage. In this case, it's rural rage. They are so angry at the liberal establishment, the coastal elite. They look at people on television, they say, oh, those people on Saturday Night Live, those snarling rich kids, I know who they are. They're all trust funders. They don't have to worry about us. And the regular guy in the country goes, there they are, snarling and making fun of us again. And every time we make fun of Trump, we're making fun of them. That's the weird, it's a weird thing. But in a way, it's like fighting terrorism. I mean, we think we just put the army in, or Israel just puts the IDF in, they're going to solve the problem. It never solves the problem because you enrage people. And we did it with Afghanistan and we did it with Iraq. We enraged the enemy to the point where they're more fiery than ever and they hate us more than ever.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, I never looked at SNL as entitled rich kids. I always looked at them as unfunny comedians that are super woke. That's how I look at them today. Because a lot of these comedians come from really poor backgrounds because, they're in comedy. They don't, it's not very lucrative unless you hit it big on like an SNL. And even so, they don't pay you a huge amount of money to be on SNL. But the point they're making is people look at that as if they're being mocked, and they are, because that's what they do on programs like that. And there's a certain amount of elitism, the West Coast, East Coast stuff. And they don't really identify with middle America, the flyover states. That's well documented. And he's saying that you guys are basically terrorists because you live in this rural area and you don't confine with the same people that are these elites. Thus, you're looked at as essentially terroristic voters. What do you think of that Chris Matthews take there?
I hear what you're saying. I didn't take it that way. I disagreed with some of the things he was saying toward the end about the reason why terrorists feel emboldened now. I think that's a different issue. But he's comparing, I think what he's trying to compare anyway, is an ideological war that's being fought. And he's saying, look, if the IDF could solve terrorism by just using blunt force, this would be over right now. But he's talking about you're trying to change people's minds. And when you're trying to change people's minds, that's a lot tougher to do because they've already made up their minds in a lot of ways. And so he compares rural voters, mid-America. I mean, he says rural, but we're in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm looking at downtown Missouri or downtown St. Louis and going, well, this isn't rural, but we're a red state. So I think he's just talking about conservative voters in general as being ideologically dug in. And I think he's right about that. And and Trump tapped into this in 2016. He tapped into this right through 2020 and up till now he still is. That there is a large contingency. I would say it's the bulk of conservative voters who feel completely overlooked by America's major institutions. And that's what he's saying. They almost have to fight on the ideological stage instead of the, just turn out your voter stuff.
All right. So I know what's happening here. So do you know who Tom Elliott is?
No.
So Tom Elliott, he's a guy that does a lot of these clips. I think he started Grabian, which is very popular in the talk industry. And he compiled the top 10 most mortifying media moments of 2023. I was thinking about going through those top 10 moments tomorrow on the show. But there was one of those moments where he compiles where Democrat strategists talk about this. They don't call them terrorists, but they say Republicans need a deprogramming. So what you are describing is essentially you can't get through to them. You need to deprogram them. So what you're saying, Chris Matthews is saying, is basically a roundabout way of deprogramming Republicans because they have been brainwashed. Essentially, is what you think that's being said?
I do. I don't know that he's saying he's going that far right there, but I do think that's the logical outcome is to say that, well, we already control the major institutions. We got the media. We got a lot of the government. We got education. We got higher education for sure. We have all these institutions, and yet these stubborn conservatives won't come around to seeing things our way. So what are we going to do about it? Well, there really is only one more option, and that's to, either silence them, which they've already attempted to do and are attempting to do, or deprogram them or basically marginalize them. And I think they're doing all of those things actively at the same time.
Can I play that part, the media talking about deprogramming? I have it queued up.
Heck yeah.
Let me do that. So here's a compilation of the CNNs, the MSNBCs of the world, talking about deprogramming Republicans because, let's be real, they are brainwashed, right? So we're going to have to get them in there and deprogram.
And when do they break with him? Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
Deprogramming that might work in other cases is it's obviously proven to be difficult.
That any exposure to children about LGBT people is automatically grooming.
How do you fix it? How do you undo it?
Well, at this point, it's deprogramming.
That's what we're being fed. People of other races are out to get you. We accept that. We get fed that. And so when that doorbell rings or the basketball comes into your yard, your first response is to pull that gun. It's a programming that's occurring. The deprogramming question is much tougher to answer.
All right, so you catch that? Isn't it interesting that all these different media types use the same word across the board over and over again, like it's a coordinated effort? So the idea, you're right, that you have been, it's not your fault. Guys, listen, Republicans, it's not your fault. You've been tricked. You just need to accept that you've been wronged, and then it'll be up to us to reprogram you. Tell me that doesn't sound like a cult or Scientology type of thing.
Oh, my gosh,
thinking.
Yeah, especially coming from, those are mainstream media outlets. I recognize some of the voices. And then what they're
Hillary
saying,
Clinton off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. What they're saying is that all of our attempts to help you have failed. We now need to put you through Clockwork Orange training.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange. That's a good
and
example.
reprogram your brain, because look, we've given you all that you need to come to the conclusion that we have predetermined for you, and you still haven't. Therefore, it is our moral duty to change your mind, maybe even against your will, but it's for the greater good. So trust us.
Yeah. Wow. So those are the two Chris Matthews takes. I think he's just finding a roundabout way of bringing that up in some ways. I think he makes some good points. There was another survey that came out, and this is kind of fascinating. But by the way, that's just one of the top 10 most mortifying media moments. I'm going to do that on tomorrow's show. I'm just going to go through all 10 because why not? So there's another study that came out that, I don't know if you saw this. 1 in 5 young Americans have a positive view of Osama bin Laden. How is that possible? I think about my generation, and I was 18 when September 11th happened. So I was in college, and I don't think at the time I was mature enough to fully digest everything that was happening. Like, I saw it as like, oh, wow, that stinks. But I don't think I fully was able to comprehend the gravity of a situation of planes flying into buildings. It was just like, this is a crazy thing. It's almost like I'm watching a movie. But the political aspect and, the lives and how everything was going to change after a moment like that, all the ramifications of it, I was oblivious, because then later you find out a lot of these things. But I'm not that far removed from Osama bin Laden. When they do a study, I don't know how in the world that people even my age can look at Osama bin Laden as a positive person, as in someone that is looked at favorably, to the tune of nearly 20%, depending on what demographic you're looking at. It shocks me. So between the ages of 18 and 29, 20% of those respondents looked at Osama bin Laden positively. Does that shock you?
That does shock me, but it is a direct result of the philosophy that is so common in America now, especially among youth and among the higher education, that America is at its core evil. It is run by evil people. It is run by mostly white males, and whiteness is evil, and patriarchy is evil. And statistically, a lot of those things aren't even true, but it doesn't matter, because it's the philosophy first that makes you feel a certain way, and then you have a generation of these people who were not alive for 9/11, or they were so little that they didn't really know what was going on, that they're now rebelling against what they're told to be the great evil of America, and saying, well, this guy was fighting against what I'd consider to be evil too, so I identify with him.
Yeah, okay, I'm just going to say this out loud just for the sake of trying to gauge. Do you think there's any difference between people that look at Osama bin Laden positively and people that look at Adolf Hitler positively? Is there a difference between those two?
Yeah, there's a difference. I do think, that's not the same thing, but ultimately it'll get there eventually, that there's going to be a lot of crossover.
Meaning that they may be actively engaging in hate crimes or, anti-Semitic feelings if you're in the case of Hitler, but maybe the Osama bin Laden sympathizers don't necessarily have a hate towards a certain religion. I don't know.
I don't know.
What would be the difference then?
I don't know that they always know exactly what they're believing in. I think they're just believing against whatever is like the thing of the moment. And it's very instinctive and not really well thought through.
So the type of people that respond to surveys like this are the same people that if you were to stop them on the street and say, name 5 presidents, they wouldn't be able to do that. So they're talking like real low information type of people.
I do think so, yeah.
Possibly. All right. We have another hour of the Andy Frey Show coming up. I'm Ryan Recker filling in. Don't go anywhere. 97.1 FM Talk.
When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio for their news, weather, sports, and a community connection. It's the backbone of the emergency alert system. It's critical that we keep AM radio in cars because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is often laced into illicit drugs and used to make fake versions of prescription pills. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. Suppliers mix fentanyl into their products because it's potent and cheap, and the dealer might not even know. Keep yourself and others safe by knowing the real deal on fentanyl. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
or if that resume was from someone who
worked 12-hour shifts at the recycling company with my dad, who's 72. That taught me a work ethic that I carry with me every day.
we rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone.
Growing up where I did, a lot of things could have gotten in the way of my goals, but I learned to push through, and that's what I bring to work every day.
So maybe it's time we look beyond the resume and look to Grads of Life. Discover new ways to develop great talent that are so much more than what's on paper at gradsoflife.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
KFTK FM Florissant. From the Under Law Injury Lawyers, GetJim.com studio, 97.1 FM Talk. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation, weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Still a chance of a little bit of wet snow, a little bit of light rain this afternoon. 39 and windy. Tonight, last of the wave coming through on the backside of the low. Periods of wet snow. 32 for the low, a half inch to an inch, mainly on the grassy surfaces. No real big deal. Friday, a mix of wet snow and a little bit of light rain. 39. We clear it out in time for the holiday weekend. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Hey, it's Annie reminding you about where the Frey family shops and how we save each shopping trip by visiting Ruler Foods, the one closest to you. Easy to find. Just go to rulerfoods.com. What are you shopping for when you visit Ruler Foods? They've got great savings right now that I want you to know about. This go through January 2nd. Corned beef or pork steaks, $3.97 a pound. Who doesn't love a good pork steak? Kroger 73% lean ground beef, sold in a 3-pound roll. $3.66 a pound, and they also have great produce. We buy a ton of produce in our house at Ruler Foods, and they always have fresh, great produce for us to buy. Right now, avocados or mangoes are just 67 cents each. Save every day when you shop at Ruler Foods, and know that when you go through the aisles of Ruler Foods, everything's organized, really smart. It's clean, it's easy to shop, and it is impossible not to save on that grocery bill when you're shopping at Ruler Foods. Find the one closest to you by visiting rulerfoods.com.
A deaf woman whose daughter has autism. War is very difficult. I see people upset, and it's hard for them. Abir signs, I struggle a lot in the war. There's hardly any food, and it's challenging to find supplies. The United Nations estimates 1.9 million Palestinians are internally displaced at a food kitchen in the south of Gaza. Civilians line up. The food here is far from enough to...
America's listening to Fox News.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare information guide absolutely free. Call 800-919-3200. That's 800-919-3200. 800-919-3200.
Your garage door is always there for you, rain or shine. Are you taking your garage door for granted? Is it screeching and whining for attention? Trust Overhead Door Company of St. Louis to keep your garage door reliable. Maybe the old weather stripping needs replaced to keep out the cold and hot air. Call Overhead Door Company of St. Louis, trusted here since 1926. For same-day service, call 314-781-5200 and schedule online at overheaddoorsstlouis.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6986. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6986. That's 800-575-6986. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
There are over 10,000 reasons why steel is not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot. Find tools for the job site or your own backyard at over 10,000 authorized local steel dealers. Find yours at steelusa.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.
The vote is in. STL Today has certified the result. Onderlaw has been voted 2023's best law firm in St. Louis.
When you're injured, call Onder Law at 314 or 618-9000000.
You're listening to award-winning, thought-provoking talk. You're listening to 97.1 FM Talk.
Your home for conservative talk.
On the air for over 20 years. This hour of the Annie Frey Show is brought to you by Ruler Foods. Low prices, no coupons. Ruler Foods.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Frey Show.
Well, we're having trouble with getting record back on, so we'll look at this for a second here. But
I'm sorry.
There we
Okay,
go.
I think we got it now. I apologize. I clicked mute here. I'm just going to go in full disclosure of what happened.
No, that's
I
good to know
recorded
because
something.
Leah had a heart
I was
attack.
talking, and you saw me probably talking in the video. I know. I did a whole setup. I tried to set up something during the break, and I had to mute myself to do that so you wouldn't hear it. And now it completely ruined the bit. Now I messed that up. I apologize.
We can just play the open again and come back in, and then you can go, okay, start now.
Now, yeah, in 3, 2, 1. No, let's not do that. Well, it's not going to be as good now. I still thought I would. Okay, let's just pretend I was giving you the spiel that my wife and kids, my wife took the kids down to her parents' house in Ohio. So they're spending some time there, mostly because I'm doing a lot of fill-in work this week. And now I have the house to myself tonight. So you know what that means?
No.
It means I spent time, I had to mute the mic so I could record this song. I couldn't do both at the same time. And that's why I was in here and was not present at the start of the hour.
So you're
Do you know this song?
A frat party? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm going to eat pizza in my underwear with no one judging me.
Oh, okay.
Essentially what that means. But the bit wasn't worth the dead air. I'm sorry. And I'm watching the video feed, and I see that someone runs into the studio frantically, like, oh no! And Leah, she's like, oh, I'm doing this for Brad. I'm not used to running the board. I'm sure she thought it was your fault, right, Leah? And it absolutely was not your fault. So my bad there.
No,
Sorry
I knew
about
it
that.
wasn't my fault because I'm like, everything's on. Like, I didn't do anything wrong.
I know. Well, I apologize for that. The bit was not worth the payoff.
I mean, it was
all.
pretty great. I mean, you played Louie. You know, you're gonna eat pizza tonight. Everybody knows it now. Everybody's good.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. This is like going into a holiday weekend for you. So you're off until the new year. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah. Hey, and the other nice thing is that you know that we are live. Because we would not have allowed that to happen if we were not here with you right now. You're driving around in your car. You know that we are working too. But I'm off tomorrow through Tuesday. I think the whole show will be back together. I think Brad comes back maybe Tuesday of next week. Annie comes back Wednesday or Thursday. So it'll be like as the week goes on next week, we'll all be returning in phases.
Yeah, I have to check my schedule. So I was asked to also fill in next Tuesday and Wednesday, the 2nd and 3rd. So maybe Annie's back on Thursday, the 4th. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. Now I'll see you on Wednesday then.
Oh, cool. That would be good.
Yeah.
So Tuesday will be another lonely day. No Ryan Wiggins tomorrow. No Ryan Wiggins on Tuesday. Aw.
No X's and O's tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow's going to be a strange Friday.
I know. It's going to be real strange if I don't unmute my microphone tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be a rough show.
Oh, my gosh.
Real strange.
Don't do that to me.
I brought this up with Hans earlier from the Heritage Foundation, and the idea that the president's inquiry is going forward. We're also looking into Hunter Biden, how the two may have worked together. Is it possible that Joe Biden obstructed justice, defying his son's subpoena? I think that's a very realistic question. How much of a factor you think this is going to play next year through the election cycle? Because here's what I'm afraid happens. I'm afraid that Republicans are going to delay this because they think it'll be important to delay it strategically as opposed to them getting it out as fast as they can. I don't want them to be dumb about this. Or do you think there's going to be a lot of urgency to start this right off the bat and try to get a lot of this inquiry and investigation out of the way right away?
I think the whole goal is to keep Trump from being able to move forward at all. I mean, they're going to throw everything possible in his path to becoming president. And so I don't think that I know that throughout 2023, we talked a lot about them doing 3D chess and, they're going to do this because they want to lift him up during the primary because they think he's the weakest candidate. I don't think any of that's true. I think this is just people who salivate with hatred for that man, and they believe that he is the second coming of Hitler, and they want to stop him, and anything they do is justified because he's that evil.
Right. So that's the game I think Democrats are playing. But on the Republican side, I'm talking about the committees that are investigating Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. So I brought this up with Hans von Spakovsky. Was it first hour, I believe, at the Heritage Foundation. And the House GOP demands the White House provide documents on Hunter Biden. They're not really forthcoming on that. So far, we know there's a couple of different email addresses that Joe Biden was using to communicate, and we've only seen 14 pages of the 82,000 pages that are known. So there's a lot of information in those fake emails. What were they discussing through those fake emails? And it's such a weird thing to think the president was using fake emails. Imagine if that was Donald Trump doing that, just how insane the left would be going. They would have impeached him even when he wasn't president. They would have tried to impeach him right now if they could. But now they're, doing this through other means. I find that a lot of times you find Democrats come out and people in the news that don't declare themselves as Democrats, they want to declare themselves as independents. They say that there's just not enough evidence. Little is known, not enough evidence. I think not only is there enough evidence, maybe not to put to trial, but enough evidence to justify continuing this investigation, that if you were to get all the information, there would be more than enough evidence for something.
Look, the evidence that we know about is plenty. I mean, they didn't even have to do this inquiry. The Republicans did not have to do this. And there was still plenty of evidence from people like Tony Bobulinski, which came out pre-2020 election, the laptop, which came out pre-2020 election. I mean, this stuff is so available to the public, that I think the only reason they think they can get away with the no evidence talking point is that Republicans haven't been able to do anything with that evidence because they have literally controlled no levers of power until after the midterms in 2022. So they'll just say, well, look, this has been going on for a long time. This means nothing. If it had, you would have heard about it quickly because it was so illegal that something would have had to been done, but it hasn't. Well, it's because they've controlled the Senate, they've controlled the House, they control the White House, they control the Department of Justice, they control the FBI. So nothing's happened because they have stymied all of it across the board.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring up an argument that I think is related to this. And I don't know if you saw the survey that breaks down different newsrooms and the journalists that identify as either Democrat, Republican, or Independent. Do you want to guess how many journalists identify as Republican today? Percentage-wise, how many identify as Republican?
Based on stats I saw after the 2020 or 2016 election, I'm going to say it's like less than 10%.
3.4%.
3.4. Okay.
That's even lower than you thought it would be.
Yeah, because I knew it was not. I thought it was single digits. I didn't know it'd be 3.
Right. So if you go back 20 years to 2002, it was 18%. If you go back to 1971, it's 25%. The closest it was basically 1971. Democrat 35%, then Republican 25%. So there's about a 10% difference. That's about as even as it got. Today, it's Democrat 36%, Republican 3.4%, and then Independent 51%. And then the last one was other. So I don't know. What does that mean? Marxist or communist?
Forward party.
8.5%. So number one, it doesn't surprise me, but I do think that plays a factor when it comes to coverage of these different stories. I feel like in having experience in a newsroom, you understand that there's certain stories that they decide not to report on, certain stories they do decide to report on. And this is where I find it. I find that the party affiliation is normally used as a way to try to attack a Republican, but they'll never identify a party affiliation if it's used or could be used to attack a Democrat. And you see this very commonly in judges. How many times have you seen a Supreme Court ruling? They'll say those conservative justices, but they'll never once mention a liberal justice, or they'll never use the term liberal in front of a Supreme Court justice. They'll say that same thing when it comes to mayors or prosecutors. They won't identify them with their political party unless they're a Republican, and they use that as part of the story to try to say, well, obviously he's a Republican, so he's going to be, you know how they are. So they use that as a way to imply certain things. But what I also find is that you get younger people in a newsroom or younger people working anywhere, and they have a certain expectation that they got from the university or whatever it is. They have a very left-leaning coming out of a university. They may have the pedigree, they may have the good grades, they may have the extracurriculars or whatever it is, but they don't have the real-world experience. So they don't really have the experience on how to be fair either. And they go in there and they are blatantly left-leaning, and they just think of that as normal. They don't look at that as biased. Do you remember Bill Maher said this once about his writing staff? Bill Maher has been on television for a long time, and he said, when I first started television, my writing staff was half and half, Democrat, Republican. He says, I can't even find a Republican that's on a staff anymore as a writer because they're all left-leaning, and there's no such thing as a balance anymore in television. And I think that's just kind of the product of what's being pumped down on universities and what we're putting into the job force.
I'm actually surprised to hear Bill Maher say that he ever had any Republicans on his staff. I'm glad to hear that he at least thought he did, but that's been the case for a long time. I mean, you mentioned the stats from 1971. This isn't new. It's gotten worse, but it's still not new. I was a journalism student myself. I was in some newsrooms and stuff in college at some college papers and outlets like that. And I was, in that world. And I can tell you right now that, me being Republican, I was able to get away with it. I kid you not, because I've never been liberal in my life. I'm not somebody who later realized, oh, you know what? I voted for Obama in 2008, and then I didn't like his policy. Like, I never, ever was liberal. I've always been conservative, and I've always been interested in politics. I didn't always know exactly what was going on, but I've been interested. So when I was in college, I was openly conservative. And I was maybe the only one that I knew of. And I'll tell you this, if I talked about God at all, there would be people who would come to me privately and say, hey, you know, I kind of agreed with what you were talking about there in classes and whatever, but they would never say anything publicly because, and this is like 2002, you know, it's gotten way worse since then. They would, and I watched them and I would be so disappointed that nobody else would speak up on issues. And I would talk about conservative issues. I'd talk about Christian issues because both of them, especially the Christian issues, were near and dear to my heart. And it really disappointed me how many people would come to me privately and say, hey, you know, I really like what you said, especially about God. That really opened people up much more than the politics stuff did. And that's great because I was much more interested in having those conversations anyway. But they would never say anything publicly. And again, this is 2002. I think, the only reason that I was able to kind of get away with being this, I don't know, conservative voice within the academia at that time is because I was funny enough. Like I could kind of
you had persona.
Yeah, I could kind of like joke
charisma
with people and hey, if we disagree, I can still be friends with you, which is still true today. But I think a lot of people who maybe weren't able to do that and get that wheel turning, they were afraid of what would happen to them because they knew they would be ostracized.
Wow, yeah. I remember when I was in college, I've always really been conservative. When I was in college one time, I had Sean Hannity's book. It was Deliver Us from Evil, came out like 2003 or something like that. And this is when I first started working for radio. And I was doing college radio, but I was also working on the weekends to get experience. And it was a news talk station that needed overnight people to basically monitor the radio stations to make sure they didn't go off the air. And they brought Sean Hannity in for the tour, like he was doing this book tour. And this is when he was still very new, just basically new to syndication on radio. And so it was a pretty big deal, you know, Sean Hannity coming around, you know, one of the top authors in the country because of this. And he came into the radio station. I got to meet him, take a picture with him. So I bought his book and I wanted to read it. And I remember having the book on my college campus. And so many people came up to me. They're like, oh, you're reading that because you just want to get, you know, ammunition against the enemy. You know, they thought you were using it as a way to try to find flaws in conservative thinking. And I said, no, I'm actually really enjoying it. And they were almost like perplexed. How in the world can you bring this book out there and take it seriously from a conservative guy like a Sean Hannity, for example? And it was kind of like that. And I'll tell you what I didn't also recognize. There was a lot of super liberal professors I had at school. I was completely oblivious to it until after the fact that I realized that there was a lot of discrimination going on. And they were really grooming people to be super liberal. And I just didn't recognize it at the time, mostly because I was naive to all of it. But now I completely can recognize it.
Yeah, I heard somebody within the last couple days on, you know, a conservative outlet somewhere, I can't remember exactly, saying, you know, I just lament the loss of journalism. Remember when journalism used to be a profession where you didn't know what the affiliation of the person talking to you was. And they said, I really miss the Walter Cronkites. There are no more Walter Cronkites of the world. Mm-hmm. Well, in 2000, it's probably 2002 also, Walter Cronkite came to speak at our university. Now, this may have been 2003. This is after the September 11th, after the Iraq war had started. And this guy just gave a speech on how evil. It was like replace the name Donald Trump with George W. Bush.
Oh,
I kid you not. Right. I thought this is going to be great. Walter Cronkite speaking at my school. You know, I don't know him that well because I wasn't alive when he was a major deal, but everybody talks about him like he's the king. So I'm going to go see him speak. He just gave a speech for maybe an hour about the evils of George W. Bush. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And this has been running these institutions for years. So even if you couldn't quite tell what he was a liberal all the way through. He was dyed in the wool liberal for sure, and was not hiding it at all, and was expecting every single person in that audience to agree with him wholeheartedly.
That's so funny. He fooled a lot. Using him as an example, it would almost like be using Dan Rather today as an example. Yeah, like you can do that,
right?
Knowing what he believes. So who would be the right example for news then? Like who would?
I don't know. Because I thought he would be the one.
Ed Morrow, the Morrow. Who do they have the awards
named
after?
Oh, the Morrow Awards.
Morrow.
Yeah, I know what you're. Edward R. Morrow.
Edward R. Yeah, Ed. Call him Ed like we're on a first name basis. Oh, Ed, we go back. Edward R. Moore. Yeah, so possibly him. I don't know. Someone more modern that you can look at as someone that's fair. How about Tom Brokaw? Is he okay?
I don't know. I would love to say yes, but I just don't know. I mean, a lot of people. It's the people who've hosted debates recently in the last 10 years that people try to point to and go, oh, like Lester Holt or Chris. What's the guy's name who's now
Wallace.
on CNN? Chris Wallace. I don't know whether you actually would believe that those people are unbiased, but they try to present themselves that way.
Right. I find that very fascinating. 3.4% of journalists in the media identify as Republicans, only 3.4%. And I think that's very telling. And also it explains a lot of why you see the coverage you see today. Not that there has to be a political affiliation posted on everyone, but what I'm saying is it also means that there's no counterweight into the decisions that go on behind the scenes, no diversity of thought. And that's why I think you see major topics that are hit over and over and over again when some really big ones are ignored or discounted automatically because it goes against their affiliation or their mindset or their bias. When we come back, Ryan Wiggins, you said you got a couple stories to bring up. Is that right?
I got a few things. Yeah. Stuff
awesome.
That maybe a little off the radar. Stuff, actually, a couple of them that have broken while we've been talking here in the last hour. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's cover some of those coming up after the break. I'm Ryan Recker, filling in on 97.1 FM Talk.
Ever heard a podcast that made you say, wow, they really said that? Risk is the show where people tell true stories they never thought they'd dare to share. Listeners say the show makes them burst out laughing and crying. Good crying. Some say it saved their lives. Surprising honesty. The most jaw-dropping moments that are stranger than fiction. Think you've heard it all? Wait till you hear Risk. Available on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Winter is here. Not as cold yet, but I'm pretty confident the cold weather is going to be here. So I just want to let y'all know, save my number in your phone for when your furnace does break. You'll know who to call, and we can get right out there and take care of you. With that said, we have been experiencing some problems with our phones going up and down. We got the phone people trying to figure out what's going on here. But if you call and you do not get a response, two things have happened. Our phones are down, or you called the wrong company. If you do not get a response from us, or if you call and nobody responds back to you, go to my website. That is Bart Inman. That's Bart with a B, Inman with an I. You should actually save that too, with the phone number, 314-293-2600. One easy number, Missouri and Illinois. And it's the only number for Missouri and Illinois, 314-293-2600. Merry Christmas and God bless.
Are you ready to smell better naked? I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, the OBGYN creator of Lumi, the whole body deodorant that's clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours on pits, feet, privates, and beyond. It's pH optimized to safely and effectively control odor anywhere you have it, but wish you didn't. Plus, it's proven to work better than a shower with soap alone. Whether you shower twice a day or 3 times a week, Lumi works better. And who doesn't want zero body odor? With over 200,000 5-star reviews, I'm so sure you're going to love it, or you can return it for free.
There's a special offer for listeners. Use code 800 and get an extra $5 off a Lumi starter pack that comes with a solid stick, cream tube, free product of your choice, and ships free with code 800. LumeDeodorant.com, code 800 for an extra $5 off a Lumi starter pack. Love it or return it for free. That's LumeDeodorant.com, code 800.
$79. That's all you need for a full-service furnace clean and check. We're Thomas Hoffman Heating. We're a 5-star rated heating and AC company. Call Tom at Thomas Hoffman Heating. Professional, affordable, and right-away service. Call 314-471-7625. That's 314 471-7625.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Winter is here. Make sure your furnace is ready to safely heat your home when cold weather arrives. Get in your comfort zone with a heating system check. Visit aircomfortservice.com.
Want to listen to 97.1 outside the listening area? There's an app for that. Download the Odyssey app, and one tap will turn the station on. The Odyssey app for 97.1 FM Talk. This is the Annie Frey Show. Follow Annie on Twitter @Annie Frey Show.
And welcome back. I'm Ryan Recker filling in. And it feels like a Friday, but it really isn't. But it does for Ryan Wiggins, who's off until the new year. Lucky you.
Oh, lucky me, except that everybody else except for Leah has been gone for longer than me. So.
Oh, okay. See, I have this week off from my regular job, but I use it to fill in to pay for the gifts for the kids because you know what? We spoiled those lousy little brats.
Oh,
that's what it should be.
I hate to hear that.
So you said there's some stories that broke while we were on air?
Yeah, a couple things that have popped up just on the feed while we've been talking in the last roughly half hour or so. One of them from The Guardian here, multiple news outlets reporting that a Georgia congressional map has been decided on, and this was a map that was drawn favorably to Republicans, although not entirely. A federal judge in Georgia today upheld a Republican-drawn congressional map, rejecting arguments from voting rights groups and Democrats that the latest district lines illegally diluted the voting power of minority residents near Atlanta. So that's going to maintain a 9-5 advantage in the House. That's an advantage. I don't think that that's a huge advantage or anything. I don't think that's like a, that doesn't sound as tilted as I thought it was going to be. But this does play well for Republicans in 24 trying to keep the U.S. House. So that's one news story.
Mm-hmm.
Another, Ryan Recker, is that the U.S. Supreme Court has officially been asked to take up Trump's 14th Amendment issue regarding being on the ballot in Colorado.
Right. So this, I think Hans mentioned that earlier during his interview, and they just want to get that ahead of them. Hey, we have to put that petition out there because we want this to be solidified. We don't want there to be any uncertainty. And you saw states like Michigan that said, no, he's going to be on the ballot. All right, we're not taking these objections and ruling him out. We have a pretty liberal governor, liberal attorney general. We have a liberal also Secretary of State, and some of these other, Jocelyn Benson is her name, made national news when she put a editorial out that basically said it's not my role to take anyone off. It's the role of the courts if anyone shouldn't be involved, legally speaking. And I thought that was the right approach. Colorado takes the exact opposite approach. They said, no, we're going to be actively trying to campaign against this guy, and we want him out of here. I didn't know what the right argument was for that, but it seems like their hatred for Donald Trump goes beyond the legal system, and it goes beyond what a normal human would normally do when they hate someone. I almost feel like this rises to the point where it's almost criminal in a way that they are abusing the system to try to take a political opponent off of the ballot. I feel like this may rise to a criminal nature in the way that they're operating, honestly. There should be at least fines available for them to try for what they're attempting.
Yeah, it's really bad. And it's not just with Donald Trump off the ballot. That one's a marquee issue. But you're seeing this, the misuse of prosecutors across the country, whether they be national, Jack Smith, for instance, or whether they be local. We had Kim Gardner doing this to people locally here in St. Louis for a long time, and she was so bad that she was removed from office. So this has been, I mean, there are consequences to people doing this. It's just in the moment you go, are these people going to succeed? And if they do, that is a travesty because we can't really come back from that.
Yeah, Kim Gardner is still being investigated from what I understand. So her resigning didn't end the investigation into her. And I believe she was the nicest thing you can say about Kim Gardner was that she was inept. Like, she was basically terrible at her job. The worst thing you can say is that she was corrupt and she acted in a way that was meant to defy the law as a prosecutor. And that, I think, can be proven. I think that's what they're going to find the more they investigate into her. She was just not terrible at her job. She was actually criminal. She was terrible, wasn't she? I mean, absolutely the worst. That'll go down as probably one of the worst politicians of all time.
Yeah, and it really is. I know that liberals hate when conservatives talk about the boogeyman behind the curtain and George Soros. Oh, you always talk about George Soros. But that guy really is funding so much of America's decline on purpose. That's his whole purpose, is to basically usher in people that won't prosecute crime. And he can buy these races for very, very little. And he has, and he's been tremendously successful at it.
What's up with these photos on Twitter? It's George Soros with a bunch of beefcakes on the beach. Did you see that one that was circulating around? It was like,
I don't visit those kind of websites, Ryan.
It was on Twitter, and he's an old dude. So George Soros needed some help because he wanted to enjoy time on the beach, like most people. So they had these basically bodybuilding beefcakes out there, like escorting him arm in arm to help him go and put his toe in the water. And they're like, this is such a weird thing to look at. It's so strange. There was someone to take that photo, and then someone posted it, and then someone shared it, and then all of a sudden I saw it.
So it wasn't necessarily George Soros posing on the beach with bodybuilders. It was that he was trying to swim and he needed protection.
I don't know how much he got in the water. Essentially, they're all shirtless, in their basic Speedos. And he goes out there and he's like, come on, boys, help me get that toe in the water. And they went out there and helped him.
Did he
it
collect
was such
shells?
a strange thing.
Did he build sandcastles?
At his age, I don't think it's a good idea for him to bend over. He'll break something, and he wouldn't be able to recover unless he's wearing his life alert. But he did have a lot of help around him, so that probably helped.
I want to get as rich as Soros just so I can get rich enough that I can go to the beach, maybe put my feet in, but then I wouldn't have to build a sandcastle. I can just point and say, I want a castle right there, and I want it to look like this. I want to be rich enough to tell somebody how to build my sandcastle.
So basically the Got Junk commercials where they point and the trash disappears, you want the opposite. You want to point and things are built for you on your behalf.
Yeah. And I want them to be livable. I don't want to just have a little kid one that like a crab's going to walk into. I want to have one that I can walk into.
What is this? 3-bedroom? Get this out of my sight.
Yeah.
You want to be so rich you can complain.
There's not even a grand ballroom. This
not even a
castle.
The sandcastle.
This has really gotten off track. I wanted to bring up a couple of these other stories that are again, fall through the cracks kind of stories here. On January 1st, Ryan Recker, 22 states are raising the minimum wage. Did you know that?
Yes.
You did. Among them are states that you might be familiar with. Illinois is one of them. The minimum wage will rise to $14 an hour in Illinois. In California, it's going to rise to $16 an hour. Although I did pull another story here somewhere, if I can find it, about how California is having trouble now with their fast food industry because they've, the push for 15. Remember it was just a couple of years ago. It was the fight for 15. Everybody was wanting $15 minimum wage.
And that was the start.
That's past
the starting point they wanted.
This is already way past that in California, for instance, because they are now talking about trying to get, and I don't know whether they've passed a bill that already is there, and maybe it's not going to pass, or if there's a fight over it right now. $22 an hour for fast food in workers in California. McDonald's is coming out and going, I think we might move out of California.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's that intense. $22 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers.
Number one, California hates you, McDonald's, because, you serve beef, and that is bad for the environment. And on top of that, they believe you don't pay your people enough. So I don't know why anyone would live in a place where they literally hate you and they're unfriendly to businesses. And then the living wage by itself is just so expensive. You look at your paycheck and see how much is going out in taxes, and you wonder, what am I getting for that? But most places, like even here, anywhere you look at the window of Taco Bell, they're offering $15 an hour. Like that's like without having the minimum wage actually legally put up to 15. These places that typically serve you minimum wage employees are now paying them $15 an hour, which is like 3 times as much as the minimum wage when I was growing up in the 90s, in high school. I think the minimum wage was $5.25.
That's a great point, is that you can right now drive around wherever you are and find somebody hiring, whether it's a Taco Bell or a fast food restaurant. I've seen even recently gas stations offering, I think it was 20-something, it might have been $21, $22 an hour starting wage.
A Buc-ee's.
I don't know. I remember where it was, but it was right around here, and I thought, my gosh, that's a really good wage for a starting wage, especially. A lot of those gas stations, and that's the whole thing, is about just letting the market do it, is that if the market needs you that badly, they're going to pay you. They're going to find a way to pay you for that work. And if they can't afford you, then they don't need to be open. That's the market. That's the way it works.
You know what I think is really going to break things open next year is the federal removal of non-compete clauses. Are you familiar what's happening on that front?
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of how it works. So essentially they brought the idea up this year, and it was up for vote next year, and all signs are going to point that, federally speaking, non-compete clauses are going to be null and void. So this is what I think. I think anyone and radio is one of those industries too that's very common. It's normally used to prevent you from working for a competitor. So with that out of place, which means anyone can leave a job at any time without the threat of a former employee taking you to court for working for a competitor, with that burden gone, I think that's going to enable a lot of people to better themselves, number one. And I think it's going to really help companies wake up and realize you got to start paying people better if you want to keep good people, because you can't hide behind this non-compete anymore. So I think that's going to be a big game changer next year.
Yeah, that's a strange one, isn't it? Because the libertarian view would be government stay out of this. This is private companies trying to do whatever they do. However, this is the government encouraging competition, which is kind of a traditional government role as far as breaking up monopolies and stuff. So it's a dicey issue, and you're right, it could really benefit. I mean, you talk about a lot of the things that the government does to try to benefit employees. So many of them are just more paperwork. They're like trying to fill out a time card every week, and you know exactly how long you worked, and everybody does, and everybody's fine with it, but you still got to fill out the time card so that you're punching the government box to do it, like for salaried employees. It's ridiculous, but these are things that the government does to try to act like they're helping you, and in fact, they're just causing you more bureaucracy. This one, though, you're right, Wrecker, it could actually tilt the scale in the favor of workers, because these non-competes are becoming more and more common in industries that they had never been existing in before.
Right.
And that's the concern, is that you're like, well, why should you sign a non-compete to go work any job when the whole point is that I'll stay here if the job's good, I'll leave if it's not.
Right. I think that's going to give a lot of people the option of mobility to go do something else. I think that'll give other companies opportunities. If they want to treat the people better, then they have no repercussion to leave, and they don't have to worry about the threat of a lawsuit. And, I think that's going to really help the job situation in a lot of different ways, mostly because they're not going to have to wait, because it's such a weird thing. If you have to only a certain amount of window opportunity to maybe go work somewhere else without getting sued. Now, if you don't have to wait for that, then you're able to hire the best person for the job. If you got the most money, you're able to hire that person. You're going to benefit if you're someone that has a higher wage and willing to do that. So I think it gives good opportunities for people. It's a very, very much employee oriented benefit. I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to help. I don't, in the end, who knows if that's going to help. But generally speaking, there's so many things that could be happening next year. These higher minimum wage things, I kind of scoff at and think, the markets are correcting itself. A person in today's market looks at a $10 an hour job. They can find a $15 an hour at Taco Bell. That's no problem finding something higher than minimum wage. That's almost like a mute point in some ways. But, some of these other things could be very helpful. Medical industries, things like that. Yeah.
Got time for one more before we break here?
Oh, yeah.
Last one, and this one's kind of a goofy one. You're familiar with the song Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams?
Sure, of course.
Okay, a little bit of a sensitive ears warning here. According to the Daily Mail, the song's co-writer, Jim Valance, 71 years old, has said that he said, I don't pretend to speak for Brian, but the two of us wrote the song, and maybe he was thinking about something different when he was talking about the summer of 69. But I was thinking about that amazing summer when I turned 17. So they went and asked Bryan Adams, or they looked up interviews with Bryan Adams. He confirms that maybe the song does have, as his intention when he originally wrote it, a double meaning.
Oh.
Just to let you know. But there's, the fight between the two songwriters. One of them saying it didn't. The other one, Bryan Adams, his name's on the song. He says, yeah, there's a more nefarious meaning to the title of that song. Just
Are
in
you
case you were
saying
wondering.
that music has sexual meanings, undertones written into them?
No, I didn't say that. I just said that it could have a double meaning. I don't know what that double meaning would be. I've never heard any of these terms before, but that's what the article is suggesting.
When it comes to music, a time when there was double meaning is so much more innocent than the music that's out there today, where they're just flat out will tell you. They'll just explicitly sing it for you exactly what they're going to do to that other person. And there's no such thing as double meaning. We're just going to tell you directly.
It's single meaning, and it is exactly what we told you what it was. And we're going to show you in the music video in case you weren't aware of what the lyrics mean.
Oh, yeah, we're going to show the dancing in the music video. And then you can ask someone in a very sophisticated way, what does that mean? And then they'll say, for broadcast purposes, oh, it means beep, 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 beep. And they have to bleep out every word they say after that because none of it is suitable for broadcast.
Right.
How would you like to be an editor of that type of music? Like if you had to get it approved so it could air on radio stations and you're listening to this and you're smoking in the studio thinking, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. I don't know how I can do it. This is impossible.
I think the only way to make that work without beeps is that they reverse the word. Have you ever heard them do that? Where it'll be singing.
I don't even know if that's legal.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Because I think even that is findable. Just reversing it, I don't think is enough, honestly. I think that could be in violation. Not that they would go through the effort of finding you for that, but I'm thinking in the pure meaning of the letter of the law. Talking about FCC violations, there's a law that says you have to disclose when you're not live, and you can't give the impression that you are live when you're not. So paid programming, mostly, they make it sound like, oh, we're here in the studio and we're talking to so-and-so, when it's actually like a pre-recorded paid thing. So some radio stations got busted for that because they want to also avoid like recorded contesting, things like that when there's not actually someone there, it could get you in trouble. So I was listening to, what was it? A radio station that was airing Santa alerts on Christmas Eve. And they said, we're live from the North Pole. Here's your weather update. And I thought, oh, they can get fined for these Santa updates. That was the broadcaster in me thinking like, oh, Santa updates are not allowed anymore on radio stations.
Ryan, that would have been a great question for Brad Young.
I know. I'll have to save it for him tomorrow. FCC violations for anyone that ran Santa updates. I hate to ruin it, but it was cold in the North Pole, just in case you're wondering. They could have recorded that any time. All right, we have one more segment coming up on the Annie Frey Show. I'm Ryan Recker, filling in on 97.1 FM Talk.
Scared of pretty girls and starting conversations. All my friends are turning green. Yeah, the magician's assistant in their dream. Oh, and they come unstuck. Lady, running down to the riptide, taken away to the dark side. I wanna be your left-hand man.
During open enrollment, it's crucial to carefully review and compare different plans to choose the one that best suits your needs. With the Pauley Agency, you're not just getting insurance, you're getting peace of mind. Visit thepaulieagency.com to learn more. Let us help tailor a plan just for you. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your health and those you care about with the Pauley Agency. Call 636-222-2149 or visit thepolyagency.com for a free, personalized quote today.
Attention taxpayers. If you or your business owe the IRS back taxes or have years of unfiled tax returns, the IRS has green-lighted billions of dollars in tax relief to those facing financial hardship through its tax relief initiatives. If you have a delinquent tax problem and possibly facing wage garnishment, liens, levies, audits, or already in a payment plan, you may now qualify for significant relief. Qualifying and enrolling in this program could stop all collections, settle your tax problem, and may even reduce what you owe by up to 99%. Call the hotline at Tax Help USA to see if you qualify by dialing 800-210-1005. If you or your business owe at least $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS or state, you can now get the help that you need during these hard economic times. Call Tax Help USA to get your free tax assessment to see what you qualify for by dialing 800-210-1005. 800-210-1005. 800-210-1005.
Warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season and a happy new year from your friends at Odyssey and Onder Law Injury Lawyers.
Hey, just a reminder that you can still vote in the Annie Frey YouTube live chat poll, but we're about to give the results, so you'll want to vote right now if you'd like to and leave a comment. The question is, which issue will motivate independent voters most in 2024? The border, immigration, that's one, the border and immigration, the economy, abortion, or foreign issues. Let us know which one you think. We'll give you the results of that poll along with a couple comments here when we close out the show. The time is 2:48. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 furnace tune-up.
JerryKelly.com.
You're listening to The Annie Frey Show. Interact with Annie on Facebook. The Annie Frey Show.
Welcome back. I'm Ryan Recker filling in for one more segment here. Oh, boy. Do you want to read those results or do you want to save those YouTube poll results?
Entirely up to you. We usually do it right at the end of the show, but...
All right, let's save them.
Okay.
I like food stories. Can I give a couple of food stories to you?
Absolutely.
There's a basketball star on the Nets. Mikal Bridges is his name. I don't follow the NBA, so I think it's Mikal Bridges. He's 27 years old. And he says for the past 10 years, he's had Chipotle every day for the past 10 years.
Wow,
Chipotle.
I didn't know that was possible.
Well, it is, and he's a superstar athlete. You remember Chad Johnson, who changed his name to Chad Ochocinco? He said he would eat McDonald's every day. I think that's what he was into. But when you're an athlete and you're working out and you're burning that many calories, like Michael Phelps, who could put down I forgot how many calories he ate a day. Sometimes the most amount of calories you can get is from that junk at fast food, but he just does it because he likes it. You think that you would just get tired of it after a while, but he says every day for 10 years, he never once got tired of it.
I had a roommate that did that, but it was with Totino's Pizzas.
Because it was the cheapest food?
It was the cheapest food, and it was the only thing he liked. I think he would eat macaroni if he had to, but that's it. He would just eat Totino's Pizzas. I really don't know what happened to him because he now lives in Kenya and he's a missionary, and I don't think there's a lot of access to Totino's Pizzas there.
You're saying that he goes to the grocery and he doesn't find frozen food sections at Totino's?
Well, I haven't asked him specifically, so possibly, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would also agree. I like their pizzas, but I'll tell you that I've only been able to eat them if I put extra toppings on it. And I don't mind it being a thin type of cheap pizza, but I got to put some mushrooms or something on there to make it work. I wonder what I could eat every day for 10 years, because I say this now, like if I love Hungry Howie's pizza. I know they don't have them in St. Louis, but I would say, oh man, I could eat Hungry Howie's every day. But there's a certain point where I wouldn't be able to eat Hungry Howie's. I think every person gets through that, but him to do it for 10 years shows complete commitment to the brand, and he deserves an award for that.
Agreed. I think that if I had to choose, I would choose 54th Street Bar and Grill because they have a huge menu. And you could eat different things every day.
So you would pick something that would have variety.
Yeah.
Pizza, not necessarily variety.
No.
Between breadsticks and pizza, what else? Sometimes you can get a salad, I guess, if you really felt it.
Salad.
Wings. Okay. Now you're starting to win me over again. I think we can work with this. So he eats it every day, loves it every day. I think it's been 5 years since I've been to a Chipotle. It's been forever. It's not that they're bad or anything. It's been forever since I've been there. There was another story, but this is kind of lame. Some of the things you shouldn't be ordering at restaurants, things that appall, And you ever talk to someone that works in the food industry and they tell you, you don't want to know how the meat is made in the back. Like they warn you right off the bat. There's some violations that go on in every restaurant you enjoy. So just don't worry about it because you're going to ruin all restaurants for you. That concerns me a little.
Yeah, me too. I don't want to know. And in fact, the less I know about the way my food is made, especially at a fast food restaurant, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. I had another story I was going to get to here about Canada in their healthcare. I may have to save that for tomorrow. Let's go through some of these poll results. I'm actually kind of curious about that.
Okay. The poll, of course, for today, I just told you this in the time check, but it was which issue will motivate independent voters most in 2024. The choices, and I want you guys to tell me which one you picked here. The choices are the border and immigration, the economy, abortion, and foreign issues. Wrecker, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Leah. Which one do you think?
I'm going to say the economy.
Okay, the economy. Leah, which of those issues would you pick? Not for yourself, but for independent voters. What do you think will motivate them?
I was thinking the economy too, but let's see. Just to be different, I'll say the border.
Okay. I also said the economy, and in fact, that was the top choice at 55%. I'm going to read a couple comments before I tell you the rest of the results. But the majority of people think the economy will be the number one motivating factor for independent voters. Russell says, I voted abortion for the simple fact that the liberal media and Democrat Party will ram that down everyone's throats in the next 11 months and make that the main focus, not the border or economy. I think there's something to be said there. Doug says, regarding the poll, the top issue will be the candidate's personality, because we are not a serious people. So he chose option number 5, which didn't exist, which is that the candidate's personality will determine it for independent voters. I think there's something to be said there, too. Lori on the YouTube live chat poll says, either immigration or economy are the top 2 deals for people. If they would close the border, that would help out a lot, as Biden told everyone to come from the beginning, and nothing much has been done, I think is what she's saying. And the last one here I'm going to pull up is from Scooter. He says, having a hard time comprehending how an improving economy can be portrayed as a negative. I'm thinking abortion is the key issue. Now, to be fair, though, Scooter, the poll did not say whether these issues are positive or negative. It just said, which one do you think will motivate voters, independent voters, the most in 2024? So he says abortion, but
I know what motivates AOC. It's the border.
So often people want to say, why aren't you talking about the border crisis? Or why aren't you talking about it in this way? Well, we're talking about it. They just don't like how we're talking about it, because it's not a border crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. It's a climate crisis. It's a trade crisis. This is not a surge. These are children, and they are not insurgents, and we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
It's so great. They got global warming and white supremacy in the same 30 seconds. Fantastic.
You really could just apply that to anything. Ask AOC what she thinks about any issue, and she could just cut and paste that answer for all of it. It's really wonderful.
Oh, yeah, she can. So go ahead, ask a question to AOC, and I'll have an answer for you.
Yeah. AOC, what do you think about Bidenomics?
Which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
Wow, AOC, that's a pretty strong answer for Bidenomics.
Yeah, I threw a curveball there because I was asking about the current president, which she usually is not going to defame.
Oh, I don't think she likes Biden.
I don't think she does either, actually. To cap off these results, though, the economy was the number one issue that people said would motivate independent voters in 2024. Number 2, though, was the border/immigration, 32%. I got to say, this is on the minds of a lot more people than we're giving it credit for, because it is in your backyard now.
Right. We're almost at the new year. Just a quick poll question for everyone here. Ryan Wiggins, do you stay up till midnight on New Year's Eve?
Not by choice.
You do, reluctantly?
Maybe if we're doing something, but we usually try not to. I don't know. have no desire to.
Leah, do you stay up till midnight?
Sure. I mean, if I go to a party or something, I don't know. I make a point of doing it.
You're still young enough to go to parties.
Yeah.
I'm too old to be going out and doing things. I stopped staying up till midnight after I was married, practically. I mean, like, what's the point of staying up till midnight anymore? When you got kids to put to bed and the only free time you have is after they go to bed, why would you waste it watching the lousy countdown on television when you could be sleeping, which is so much more better than staying up till midnight any other day?
Completely agree.
All right. Enjoy your new year, Ryan Wiggins. I guess I'll talk to you in the new year.
Absolutely. See you then.
Leah, I'll be back again tomorrow. Looks like we'll get to hang out here. I'll try to find some Taylor Swift stuff for you at 97.1 FM Talk.
Every 36 seconds, a vehicle is stolen in the United States. Cars are an important investment, and you have the power to protect it. Remove valuables from your car or place out of view. Roll up your windows completely. Don't leave your car running while unattended, especially during the winter. And always lock your doors and take your keys or fob with you. If you know something about a vehicle theft, call us at 1-800-TEL-NICB.
This is a public service message from the National Insurance Crime Bureau.